call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mayor Reese,
Here.
Councilmember Osk,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Schultes,
Here.
Fagerly,
Here.
Osmus,
Here.
Butterfield,
Here.
and O'Brien.
All right, here.
Nine present, 0 absent.
All right. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Being none, roll call.
Councilmember Osk,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Schultes,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 noes.
That passes. We'll go to the consent items. I'll call on Vernee Larson, City Clerk.
Mayor Reese and council members, for your consideration today, we have the City Council meeting minutes from May 6, 2024, Municipal Utilities Commission meeting minutes from May 13th, Centricare preliminary and final plat approval, reschedule for June 3rd, 2024 in consideration of rezoning parcel number 95-280-2480 from R2 to GB, purchase of a Toro 5040 Sand Pro from MTI Distributing, Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails Legacy Grant Application and Resolution, Willmar Baseball Boosters Association Conduct Off-Site Lawful Gambling Application, consideration for a state temporary liquor permit for Willmar Baseball Association, consideration of the municipal-owned property on-sale liquor license holder permit Spurs Corporation, City Park Special Event on-sale liquor license holder permit for Spurs Corporation, consideration of state temporary liquor permit for Willmar Lakes Rotary Club, and consideration of state temporary liquor permits also for Willmar Lakes Rotary Club, the 2025 budget calendar, accounts payable report from 5/3/24 to 5/15/24, the city finance report from 4/30/2024, and the zoning appeals board from Cletus Frank. Also for your consideration and just for information are the director's reports and the Willmar Municipal Utilities Finance Report for March 2024.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item P off the consent agenda, and then I would make a motion to approve the remaining items.
Second.
You got a motion and a second to approve, except for P, which will carry on the next item. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Schultes,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien, and Osk.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 noes.
That passes. The Zoning Appeals Board, Councilmember
Yes, thank
Justin
you.
Osk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From what I know of Mr. Frank, he's certainly qualified and he's a gifted attorney, but the conflict of interest to be working directly with a department of which he has his son works for seems pretty apparent to me. Am I missing something there?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, to clarify that the boards and commissions that are managed by the Department of Planning and Development, for the Board of Zoning Appeals, I will manage that to avoid any conflict of interest for that, and Chris Frank would continue to manage the Planning Commission, if that's acceptable.
I'm assuming that the work that Mr. Christopher Frank does with the planning department still directly relates to the work of the appeals board, whether or not he's directly the staff contact and liaison for that.
It's a shared responsibility. He would still be very aware of the agenda items that comes to that board.
Audrey?
I would express a concern too. I know of him and he is very articulate with that. I know we had a situation earlier. I think that just both ways I have a concern. I also think that the Board of Zoning Appeals provides an avenue for constituents and people to come to question what goes on at the Planning Commission or to challenge that and bring new information. And so I'm uncomfortable, I think, too, with it not both ways. I think we need to protect our staff and we need to protect our community, that it is a fair board.
Thank you for that, and we can discuss this internally as well, but as of now, I will take your recommendation if it is to withdraw the application.
Staff can withdraw? Is that, or would we vote it down?
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, this is a mayoral appointment under the charter to a charter board, so the only person who could withdraw the proposed nomination would be the mayor. Otherwise, the council would need to vote, and 5 council members would need to approve the appointment for it to take effect.
I will withdraw the nomination. All right? Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christopher, how many members do you need on that board?
So the total number per the charter is 7 members for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Currently, we have 1. And for the last 5 or 6 months, I've been recruiting for members, and it is always listed in the director's report.
All right. I see there's a lot of people here tonight, so if anyone is interested in being on that board, contact Christopher.
All right. With that, we'll, next item is the open forum, and nobody signed up for the open forum, so we'll go right to the public hearing. I'm going to go through some housekeeping here. The next agenda item is a public hearing on the ordinance that's been introduced to authorize the sale of city-owned real property with parcel 95, 921, 5690 to Cura for development as a senior housing project. A public hearing is an opportunity for members of the public to express your views and opinions on a specific issue under consideration by the council, and the council will not be deliberating or discussing the proposal with the public during the public hearing. Instead, it will simply listen to those who decide to speak. The council may also ask questions of staff or interested parties during the public hearing. This public hearing is a continuation of the public hearing that was first opened on April 15th, which was continued until this evening. And all public testimony that was offered during the public hearing, April 15th, is already part of the public hearing record and needs not to be repeated tonight. Once the public comment portion of the public hearing is finished, I will close the public hearing and the council will deliberate and take action. The staff recommendation to the council tonight is not to adopt the ordinance, but rather amend the ordinance to identify a different site within parcel 95, 921, 5690 to convey to Cura, and set a new public hearing on the ordinance as amended for June 3rd, 2024. If the council follows that recommendation, there would be another opportunity for the public to comment on this proposed conveyance on June 3rd before the council takes final action. The procedure for this agenda item and the public hearing will be as follows. First, I will open the public hearing. Second, the council will hear any staff presentations on the ordinance and/or comments from the city attorney, during which the council will have the opportunity to ask questions of staff regarding the proposal. Third, I will ask representatives from the Willmar Municipal Utilities for any comments in response to the staff presentation. Fourth, I'll do the same with EDC. Fifth, I will ask the representative of Cura for any response to the staff presentation. And sixth, members of the public who wish to speak to offer new testimony will have that opportunity. Finally, after everyone who wishes to speak has spoken, I will close the public hearing and the council will deliberate and take action on the staff recommendation. In order to try to have this process go smoothly and respectfully for all involved, I would like to go over some basic guidelines we ask the public to abide by during the hearing. Please limit your comments to the scope of the issue before the council, which is whether to adopt an ordinance authorizing the sale of a portion of parcel 95-921-5690 to Cura for development as a senior housing project. Speakers must sign up prior to speaking and provide their name and address. You had to do that before you came in. There's a sign-up sheet, like I said, right in the entrance of the room, and you will be taken in the order that you appear on the sheet. When called upon to speak, please give your name, address, and if representing a business or a larger group of citizens, the business or group you are representing. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes in order to allow everyone in attendance to speak, and try not to be repetitive of previous speakers or comments previously made during the initial hearing at the April 15th, 2024 council meeting. The council will generally not respond to questions during the public hearing, but may refer questions to staff for a response or further research. With that, I will open the public hearing. Staff will now provide recommendation. Christopher, are you going to do that now? Or, yes? Okay.
All right, good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. I would like to first start by acknowledging some of the hard work that has led us to today. I would like to thank the city administrator, Leslie Valiant, directors of operations, Cal Box, as well as the Planning and Development Department and Willmar Municipal Utilities, as well for their collaboration to get us where we are today. I'll be showing you our new proposed site, as well as going over some iterations too. I'll also like to say that, a lot has been said since February, and so hopefully today going through the facts that we can enlighten the public. And I'll also like to thank the public as well throughout the public hearings that we have had. Their concerns have really shaped the design of the layout, and so I'll be happy to share that too. So today's intentions, I'll review the housing market analysis and taking a look at open space south of Swanson Field. Then I'll talk about the collaboration between the City of Willmar and Willmar Municipal Utilities. I'll go over the site plan iterations that have been collaboratively drawn, and then we'll talk about the proposed design. So there's a lot to go through, and I promise not to be up here for too much longer. So the Willmar housing market analysis in 2022, in collaboration with the Economic Development Commission, they identified a few things, and some of the key findings were that Willmar has always experienced growth according to our census, that we continue to expect a growth in population, it's projected among all ages groups of this decade. So our senior population is going to probably be the most fastest growing population here in Willmar. Sources of housing demand in Willmar include projected household growth, pent-up demand from our rental, and capturing a portion of commuters to jobs in Willmar, and senior housing needs. So we know that there is a need, and I think we all can agree in this room that there's a need for senior housing. So we have some newer developments to come online. We have Block 25, 58 units, ASH View, 144 units, The Preserve on 24th, 108 units, and Unique Opportunities on Lakeland Drive for 72 units. That's just the first phase. The second phase they abruptly moved into, or quickly moved into or had, because they had a wait list of 700 residents looking for newer apartments. Now, these are all, for the most part, market rate apartments, and there's some affordability, but there's not deep affordability, and I'll talk about that a little later. So in 2022, we did our housing needs. We took a look at what should we be looking for developers to come to build. And one thing that stands out and why Cura and other senior housing developers are looking at Willmar is because there's a need by 2030 to produce 615 units for affordable senior housing, starting at 55 of age and more, 240 units. And out of those 615 units, 375 of those units will need services. So those are services such as what the Rice Care Center and other facilities here in the city produce or perform. So I wanted to take a look at our demographics. Earlier, when I stated that the fastest growing population will be our senior community, you can tell that 18 to 64 is about half of our population. If you take a deeper dive into 65 years and older, you'll see that this is in 2022. We're already in 2024. By 2025, majority of our population would be over 64. They're thus qualifying for a unit at a site similar to what Cura is proposing, 55 years or older. So our housing tenure, this is very important. I took a look at the chart between homeowners and renters, and we know that from 65 to 74, a bulk of homeowners are still in their home in 2022. There were 1,692 homeowners of age 65 and older, with 206 units or 206 people owning a home 85 years or older. So we know that the senior household owners are higher than almost any other age range as well. And then we took a look at senior renters. We've identified that studio and one-bedroom units in Willmar were probably around 938. 634 of those renter households headed by adults 65 years and older. Since 2017, and this chart actually compares 2017 studio to one-bedroom rental units to 2022 data. And you'll see that for the most part, senior housing or senior households are still in need of affordable housing and rental units as well. So where does the city come in to help answer this? Well, we have this thing called land management. The land that we own is a process of overseeing and making decisions about the use, development, conservation of land resources. It involves the planning, administration, and implementation of strategies and practices to ensure sustainable and responsible management of land. Land sales happen at the city level. Starts in the Department of Planning and Development. And we have the authority to sell land or buildings that are underutilized to anyone other than public officials and certain employees. Generally speaking, a city does not need to get permission from the public to sell land. In some instances, however, a city may need to notify people, such as today, a public hearing, to do so. So I laid out the 4 steps for purchasing publicly owned property. Step one is a purchase agreement. It is to lay out the intent of purchasing publicly owned property and saying the intent of what is to be built there. That's where we are today. It is just the step one, which is a purchase agreement that has not been approved, so formally. And February 20th, and I'll go through a timeline, but in February of this year, you all approved a purchase agreement to Cura for the site. The next step after that would be a developer's agreement and then closing. So the developer's agreement is basically, it goes from intent of the purchase agreement to the developer's agreement, which lays out exactly what is to be built, how is it to be built, and then the rest of the public process. So let's talk about open space south of Swanson Field. So this is a site that we're all very familiar with. What you're looking at is about 36 acres of open space, undeveloped, because this used to be, or historically it was in a fly zone and decommissioned in 2008. You'll have a skateboard park in the northwest corner, followed by a dog park across the street. There's a parking lot. West Central Industries is across the street. Baker Diamond is here where the Northwoods League plays. County Recycling, or the recycling facility, is there. The county no longer owns. Stormwater Pond is there. And then on the west side, or the east side, excuse me, is the stormwater swell, the care center, a pollinator field, residential area right there on 18th that abuts it. And we have a playground and a recreational trail. So I kind of go through the inventory of this 36 acres because there's a lot happening here and it doesn't operate as a park per se. You can't really constitute this as a park. There's no deed restriction that restricts it to be only a park. But what you're looking at with the trail is more of a passive park or a passive open space. We also may think of the field on south of Swanson Field. We may remember when it rains, like in early May, rain stands there and there's a need for stormwater mitigation. And so I'm going to start by showing you the very first iteration that came before you. It is 5.54 acres, dead smack center of the open space. And we got concerns about it, and we heard those concerns, and we understand those. And, you know, this is a site that started last year and came back again in the same iteration. And so we wanted to collaborate with our utilities as well as members of the public and internally to find out a better solution. So we heard 3 concerns from our partnering organization, which is the Willmar Municipal Utilities. The first concern was the proposed stormwater pond could potentially contaminate our water source by infiltration. We have correspondence from the Minnesota Department of Health that speaks to our clay-rich till between the land surface and Berry Sand Aquifer, and know that no infiltration into the aquifer is possible. However, to do some reassurance and to make sure that is the best outcome with no infiltration happens, the solution would be to line the pond, which is a common practice, but there's no infiltration in the city of Willmar. The next one is that the proposed stormwater pond and the building, we need to make sure that the wells are following state regulation and state and setbacks. Again, from the Minnesota Department of Health, if the city indeed to decide to pursue this development initiative and can do so in compliance with applicable laws, rules, and regulations. So the solution here is easy. We are to comply with the laws, rules, and regulations as laid out by the state. The next one is that now that we have identified potential well locations, we must test them to gather information about their potential production. In the final iteration of this tonight, I will show you that we have not relocated any of the test wells, that those test wells can stay, and that are already current, and the 2004 test data that is presented 20 years ago is still good today. So I want to talk about the public process for Cura. This site is it's a hot topic for sure, but the public process is a little different than most of the purchase agreements that we go through. And so again, on February 20th, we spoke about the approval of a purchase agreement. On March 4th, we had a conversation with utilities. And then March 6th, we had a planning commission. We received a memo then, and the item was tabled. On March 7th, we had another conversation with utilities to rescind their memo. And then we went to the planning or the utilities commission, and they declined to rescind. And then on the 20th of March, planning commission reviewed the purchase agreement, and the motion was made to approve with the condition that the planning department and the developer, Cura, work with the utilities to ensure that the proposed development and the proposed stormwater project will all fit on the site without impeding future well development at that location. So just to fill in some of the gaps and to go and share that we have successfully collaborated with our partner at utilities. On March 28th, we did a work session between City Hall staff as well as utilities to talk about the potential layouts. Out of that conversation, our city engineer actually drew up two renderings. One was fitting inside of this Y, the two trails, the east and west trail. And that gave us about 3 acres. And we took a look at it and we said, well, this probably isn't the best fit. It's a tighter space, and there's really not a lot of room for building apartments or to route traffic off of Willmar Avenue. And then at the direction of utilities, we moved the site west, eliminating the northwest trail and rerouting the trail. It's suggesting to reroute the west side trail directly to the west to connect to the trails on 22nd Street. On April 9th, we had another work session, and both the City Hall staff as well as utility released a joint statement and requesting to reschedule the public hearing, which was scheduled for April 15th. We went back to the drawing board, and we identified that we might be able to move it a little bit more, move the site further west, and so you'll have this one here. Now, it's very important to share with you that as of May 10th, this site that you're looking at now was actually the last iteration that we had. It was a working iteration that I'll show you next, but the letter that was approved by the Utilities Commission on the 13th, this Monday, is in relation to this site, which we are not proposing. And so after a collaboration on May 10th, we had another meeting with utilities. We talked about iterations, the final iteration, what that possibly could look like. We know that potentially we now have 4.66 acres. It provides a 50 to 75-foot radius around each well to have adequate space between the property line and the well that's in production. A 200-foot radius around each well to maintain the testing area, and to keep all existing wells, test wells, right where they are. So there's this development should not impede on any of the test wells. And then we identified 2 additional well locations, and the stormwater pond that is being figured out now is to mitigate stormwater runoff. We received the final site layout from Baldwin Mink on May 14th, so a day after the commission's meeting. And so here it is. So what you see is the rerouting of the Western Trail directly west to 22nd Street, as we discussed. And I have handouts for people in the audience too. The first handout that we'll all receive is the map amending the parcel layout. So I'll pause there for a second. All right. Things that I definitely want to point out for this, for your consideration, is that there is a test well, so TH being test wells. It is, if you bear with me just a second. So we have the first one in the center of the site is TH4-04. That is a test well that cannot be placed into production until the north side is decommissioned. But what you'll see is the blue ring around it, that's the 50-foot radius, followed by an extra 25-foot radius, so that's 75 feet total. And on the west side, which is an active well, that is well number 23, the same thing is there. And so you'll see that state guidelines says that the wells have to be 50 feet from the property line. This one is 75 feet from the property line. You'll see further down under or south of 23, you'll see another well, which is 24. Those two wells are active. The one to really pay attention to is over to the east, is TH804. That is a monitoring well that can be developed at a later date. Then we have TH604, that is another well, and then there's other ones as well. So these are all of the original test wells that were dug in 2004. Those test wells can stay right where they are, and this development does not impede on future well developments. So here's the question. Can it all work? The short answer is yes, it can work. The proposed site does not impede on the future well development. As I mentioned, the layout of the parcel complies with state regulation as outlined by our city engineer, the Minnesota Department of Health, Carlson and McCain, and Willmar Municipal Utilities. The site design or the design of the building must integrate nature, people, and include natural elements on the site. This development has potential to mitigate stormwater and reinvestment into open space. So here we are. The next handout that you'll be receiving is the proposed layout of the building. The proposed layout of this building, this L shape going from north to south, was actually thought about with using the public feedback. The loss of green space. You know, I imagine it would be very jarring to go down Willmar Avenue and to see a large building dead smack in the center of the open space. This is an open concept for residents and the public to continue to enjoy, minimizing the loss of green space. It tucks parking behind, just north of existing parking. And it connects trails. It creates a network of trails. Throughout the site, you'll see vegetation. And so what as a planner, I would think, as an urban planner, I would think that a vote for this is signaling reinvestment back into this open space, planting vegetation and making sure that we're not offering just a subpar park, but to reinvest in the park and really making this more of a gathering space for the community. I also see a vote for this being a response to our housing crisis and for creating more affordable senior housing. So with there, I will pause for a second. We're going to bring up utilities at this time.
Yes.
Okay. So utilities, if you all have any questions, I will stand for questions, but at that time, I'll pause my presentation. Okay? Thoughts?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm John Herron. I'm here tonight representing Willmar Municipal Utilities, 700 Litchfield Avenue Southwest. And I'm here to read into record correspondence that the utilities submitted on May 20th to the city. So May 20th, to Leslie Valiant, City Administrator, City of Willmar. Public hearing, potential sale of park property, land parcel 95-921-5690, Miss Valiant. The City of Willmar is holding a public hearing on May 20th for the consideration to enter into a purchase agreement for the sale of said property. Willmar Municipal Utilities is submitting this letter expressing concerns and requests that the Willmar Municipal Utilities comments and documentations be entered into public record and taken into consideration. Willmar Municipal Utilities is expressing its urgent intention of protecting the aquifers that supply water to the City of Willmar. Through long-term planning and agreements with the City of Willmar, Willmar Municipal Utilities and the city have sought to protect the well fields and have expended extensive resources to do so. Willmar Municipal Utilities cannot support the sale of the land within the parcel known as Swanson Field for the reasons stated in the letter, April 8th, 2004, letter from the Minnesota Department of Health. Excerpt from that letter. Whereas the management of natural and water resources often tends to be reactionary, Willmar has taken an exceptional proactive approach to its future water needs by committing resources to developing its well fields. Willmar Municipal Utility has made a substantial investment of financial and human resources to ensure that options are in place to continue to provide high-quality drinking water to the residents of Willmar. By having the foresight to plan for the future wells and having identified exact locations ready for well completion when it becomes necessary, Willmar Municipal Utilities has put Willmar at a tremendous advantage. Minnesota Department of Health commends Willmar Municipal Utilities' efforts and assisted Willmar Municipal Utilities financially and will continue to provide technical and financial assistance as needed. End of the excerpt from Minnesota Department of Health. The city and Willmar Municipal Utilities have unsuccessfully explored numerous options that Willmar Municipality could not support that would ensure the protection of the well fields. As Willmar Municipal Utilities values development, it suggests that the city continue to explore other options to accommodate the request as Willmar Municipal Utilities and the city agree that the protection of the well field is paramount. As the city and Willmar Municipal Utilities have entered into joint land use agreements for the Northeast Well Field, the Adine Park, and the Swanson Field north of Willmar Avenue. In May of 2012 memo, the city and WMU agree that all would follow the Swanson Field north of Willmar agreement in principle for the properties identified on the south side of Willmar Avenue. In the agreement, Willmar Municipal Utilities agreed to allow the Park and Recreation Department to develop the area designated as recreational according to proposed planning. Therefore, in principle, WMU should have the ability to utilize the property as outlined in the City of Willmar and Willmar Municipal Utilities 2012 agreement for city water supply as identified by the 2004 test hole drilling report. 8 wells have been identified within said parcel, and 2 of the 8 wells currently provide water to the city. The remaining 6 wells will be developed as the community water demands increase due to growth, wet industry, or one of the current wells is required to be abandoned. As depicted in the attachment, proposed well locations and Willmar Avenue water main crossing, there is minimal property available that could be sold for development. Respectfully submitted, Willmar Municipal Utilities, Sean Muskie, President, CC'd, Attorney, Mr. Scott, Mayor Reese, City Engineer, Mr. Vogie, City Clerk, Willmar City Council, attachments, Carlson McCain letter dated May 9th, Minnesota Department of Health letter dated April 8th, proposed well locations and Willmar Avenue water main casing, Willmar Municipal Utility, City of Willmar Agreement, 2012, 1988 Agreement, Shared Use Agreement, Swanson Field, north of Willmar Avenue. That's the end of the correspondence that was officially submitted. In light of what we're hearing here tonight and the opening comments, Willmar Municipal Utilities will continue to work with the city on the latest iteration that has with the site layout to address any additional concerns that may need to be addressed with that site layout. That layout has been submitted to Carlson McCain, as Christopher referenced, and the Department of Health on Friday morning, so we are waiting back for their comments. So, thank you.
Thank you, John. We will move on, but the council will have questions for staff later on. All right? Next, EDC, Michelle Moratsky.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Michelle Moratsky. I serve as the Business Development Manager for Candy-Ojai County Economic Development, or KCED. KCED exists to be a catalyst for economic growth of the greater Candy-Ojai County area. On May 15th, KCED provided a letter of support to City Administrator Leslie Valiant and Planning Director Christopher Corbett. I will share the letter outlining the reasons for KCED's support of the Cura Senior Housing Project at the proposed location. Dear Ms. Valiant and Mr. Corbett, the Candy-Ojai County Economic Development, KCED, exists to be a catalyst for economic growth of the greater Candy-Ojai County area. Cura, the Paynesville senior housing developer, recognizes that there is a strong need for more affordable senior housing options in the city and the county. We acknowledge that Cura's plans to develop senior housing in Willmar are separate from the purchase of the nearby skilled facility they currently manage. The proposed sale of land near the corner of Willmar Avenue Southwest and 22nd Street Southwest will offer Cura the opportunity to construct quality and safe senior housing units. The KCED supports development of housing at all levels, including those that support seniors with assisted living needs. As demonstrated in the January 2023 Candy-Ojai County Housing Market Analysis, there is a need of 615 senior housing units in Willmar between 2022 and 2030. Progress toward this need is forthcoming with the planned developments by Bethesda, 120 units, primarily independent living, and Trident, 75 units, primarily assisted living. Cura plans to add another 80 to 100 units, primarily assisted living units, as well as around 30 new jobs. Assuming all three projects move ahead, we still would only have addressed half the need. Cura's recent acquisition of the former Rice Care Center, located at 1801 Willmar Avenue Southwest, is its first step toward providing a continuum of care for Willmar's aging population. The location of the housing development is its second step and is best served by being within close proximity to the existing care center, which the proposed purchase agreement offers. Additional benefits of this location include close proximity to Rice Hospital, rehab facilities, and other related medical facilities. Willmar Avenue Southwest is an arterial road right in front of the proposed site, which provides a direct route to Rice Hospital if needed. Access to municipal trails, allowing residents, family members, and employees to use them, and other recreational facilities in the area while still allowing the general public to access them. Cura will pay the city of Willmar for the land, and proceeds could be deposited into the general fund or the Parks and Rec Fund. Cura would also pay a park dedication fee of approximately 7% of the land value. Major utility lines, water and sewer, already exist, and Cura would be responsible to pay for any necessary line improvements. Based on KCED's work with Cura, we support the sale of the proposed site in the configuration as best determined by the City of Willmar's Planning Department. The proposed development will provide an opportunity for a continuum of care to area seniors as they age and progressively need medical care and services. If you have questions or require additional information, Aaron may be contacted at 320-235-7370 or aaron@candiohigh.com. Sincerely, Aaron Backman, Executive Director. I'm also happy to take any questions you may have.
I think we'll do that later if they have questions. Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have representatives here from Cura. Would any of you care to address the council in regards to the presentation? Tom?
Mayor, council, city staff, and residents. I'm Tom Opatz, President and CEO of Cura. As you know, we went through a rigorous request for proposal process to be here in Willmar. And as part of that process, one of the things that we heard from the city and Centricare is affordable senior housing in Willmar. So our project is significantly different than the other proposals because it has affordability components to it. So you can downspend your assets and you'll still have a place to live here in Willmar, Minnesota. There's no doubt this location is at interest by other developers. It certainly has interest for us. So as we look at the strategic plan for the care center, given the sheer volume of transitional care that we do at the care center, whether that's knees, hips, etc., these individuals get discharged either to their home or another senior living building. We feel it's vital if they do have an opportunity to have senior housing close to the nursing home so they can go see a loved one in the nursing home and don't have to drive clear across town. I also think it's important to recognize these are people that live in the city of Willmar. I think some people say senior housing and, oh, they're going to come from St. Cloud and Spicer and Paynesville. These are individuals that are going to come right from Willmar, Minnesota, which will also open up residential housing for our workforce and other folks looking for housing. I will say as we look at this process, it isn't, we're going to go to a different site, because when we look at affordability, this is the location to the nursing home, whether it's support staff, transportation, and just continuity to the care center for loved ones to see each other. So and just a little background on this. So when we came into Paynesville, Minnesota, about 3 years ago, this was the same discussion. You know, are you really going to do a senior housing building? Are you really going to build a new nursing home? And last Tuesday, we actually opened up the new care center. The housing's been open for about 1.5 years. It's completely full. It's 100 units in size total, and there's 120 people on the waiting list. So I hope that you consider this option to sell the property and develop the senior housing. And I do think the city staff, John, I think we've looked at the opportunity that we all can exist in this site and meet our objectives for the different organizations. So with that, Pam, do you want to come up and speak on behalf of Cura? Questions for me?
I think we'll-
To the end? Okay.
Hi, I'm Pamela Adam. I'm the current administrator of what was Rice Care Center, Caris Health Care Center, Centricare Care Center and Therapy Suites, and now Cura of Willmar. We have been servicing community members here in Willmar for over 50 years. We have partnered with the hospital in strategies of caring for our seniors. I've been caring for our seniors for 38 years. And the one thing that always comes up is affordable housing. And as we bring in people from the community into the care center and into our therapy suites, as we're talking through their discharge plan, affordability is always the top of the agenda. And many of them just can't do it. And so when I look around in the room, over half of us are going to be impacted by a loved one that is going to need that service. And if you look at Bethesda, look how successful that project was, to have all those different levels of housing real close, so that whether you're a married couple or mother, grandmother, you can access some level of that housing and still be together and still be very vibrant in the community. That's what's important to them. We access every area around the area of the care center. We have bikes that go on the bike path. We take our residents for walks on the walking paths. We bring residents to the Stingers ball games. And we have some that even go over to the ball game across the street. We have daycare from Vinci that come and they want to be part of the care center. We want to have all of them thrive within the community. And when I saw the layout of this project, it's so perfect to provide additional members of the community the same opportunity they do at Bethesda, to be close and to be connected into this community. So I too ask for your support. I think it would be a great thing to give to additional community members of Willmar.
All right, thank you. The council will now take public comment. When your name is called, please come to the podium and give your name, address before you testify. First person on the list is Representative Dave Baker.
Mr. Mayor, you must have moved me up the list a little bit, but that's okay. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm just here to understand this better too. I've been watching it and following it in the newspaper and listening to residents, and honestly, I wanted to just share, and again, I'm here to learn and listen, especially to the new project site plan. What I will tell you is, just coming off of an exhausting 5 months from St. Paul, I am, number one, so grateful to be home. But I'm telling you, it's going to get harder and harder to get these kind of projects built in any community in Minnesota. Costs are rising faster than you can imagine. They just now had some new changes in the commerce bill that just passed, that it's going to another 15% at least. Because everything that's going to get any kind of a tax credit or any kind of an assistance is going to be requiring prevailing wages now in rural Minnesota. And that, to me, is not the right thing for us to deal with. Now, it doesn't really apply to this project, but what I see here and what I'm kind of imagining is I hope we can find a way to make this work. I also know that, being a former member of the Utilities Commission, we got to get that sign off. If we don't get that, that's going to be a challenge. So having those test sites are very important. And when I sat on the commission back then for 7 years, it was important that we had that maintained. It looks like and sounds like they're doing everything they can to work through these issues. Having the MDH sign off on it is important, but having a local, again, now a new business owner, CEO, they want to grow and expand. It sounds like this would be a great project. I can't tell you that this is a no-brainer, because it isn't. It's got to have some checkoffs with the utility company. And again, I've been there many times when the place is flooded. I see this beautiful ballpark, and so it's hard to imagine that green space turning into something different. But I'm just here to say that if we get somebody that really wants to do this, and this isn't going to work in another location for this particular company, it sounds like, I hope that we can at least do everything we can to figure this out. If we can't, then we can't. But I'm hoping that Willmar will continue to grow, have a place for our seniors to go. Aging in place is a big, big deal. So I support the project if we can figure out the other areas to check off, which is, I know, your decision to make. So I just wanted to come and listen, and thank you, and I'll continue to learn and answer questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next, Jay Lawton.
I'm Jay Lawton. I live at 424th Avenue Southwest. I've been here before on this issue, so I'll try not to repeat myself. Number one, I appreciate the need for senior housing, being in that demographic. I'm hoping never to need it myself. But this is just not a good place. They talk about, you hear some of this discussion about studies on drainage. Have you ever been to a Stingers game after a rain and seen them trying to scrape that water off of there and there's nowhere for it to go? Have you ever seen that field after a heavy rain? It's too bad this one that's coming tonight didn't come before this meeting. You could see that. The Hawk Creek Watershed District has advised that it's not a good plan. The municipal utilities have advised it's not a plan. The park board's not in favor of it. I really think, I appreciate that Cura needs a place to build, but I don't believe this is the right place. Now there's talk about the skateboard park. Councilor Nelson and I were on the planning commission when we built that 18, 20 years ago. And that was a big project, and we went through a lot of hoops to do that. I'd hate to see that disappear. So I'm just advising this body that this is not the right location for this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Next is Aaron Larson.
Aaron Larson, 219 Anthony Street, Willmar. Mayor, members of the council, I'm here to express my concern about the city possibly selling this parkland near Swanson Field. I feel there's other locations in town that are prime for development. The city doesn't need to be sacrificing parkland for this project. I feel like one of Willmar's best assets is its park system. And with that said, I feel like it's just a mistake to sell this parkland. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Brian Hurley. Hi, Brian.
Excuse me. Hi. Thank you, members of the City Council, Mr. Mayor. Before at our last time I spoke at the council, I came from the perspective, and this was on April 15th, I came from the perspective of why are we building at this location? This time I bring my concerns from a point of frustration and disappointment from the Planning Committee's failure to acknowledge the no voices. As a teacher at the Willmar ALC, I come from a perspective that views the state's desire to help students learn and to grow. And when we see things like test scores and state standards, and I know my department very well and what we have to do. I know the needs that these have to be applied to my students, but my point being is I need to discuss how do we help them grow the best. I look at them and I see that we need to make sure that the right way of teaching a student is happening. And if I don't discuss this with them, I won't actually know what that means. So doing this ensures an acceptance as well as building a great method of how do I educate my students. I look at the same thing that's happening here, and are we doing the best method that could possibly get this task done? The planning team, I feel, has not done this. There are many stakeholders that have not been engaged. What I have been seeing from talking with fellow citizens and community members is we're hearing no from utilities. There's a no from the health department. There's a no from Stingers fans. There's a no from parks. There's no from other citizens and homeowners, from park owners, and even from voices of seniors. There's a lot of no's there. This is a failure on behalf of the planning team to acknowledge this. As a teacher and getting that many no's from my students, that would be unacceptable. I understand that some of the staff has not been in Willmar super long, but this team needs to listen to those voices like Mr. Skoglund, Mr. Meske, and the other many citizens who have not been engaged yet. So I ask that the council take a stance of no. This matches what the citizens are wanting, and I think that there's a greater number than is being present at these different meetings. But I also feel that a no is not enough. The dates in this project, when we look backwards of how long people have been trying to sell this precious park land, and you keep going back, and it's been around since I was in high school 15 years ago. Now is the time when we need to look at this piece of parkland and have something that cannot be removed. Especially we look at things that have been built on Robbins Island. We look at the flags of honor memorials. No one would question putting something right next to some of those places because it is a special park place. I think Swanson Fields and this area needs the same treatment. That we want to put something here that is going to be a lasting legacy for this city. And we want something that the citizens are deciding on, not just something that's chosen quickly. So if we ask the citizens, they won't say to build a 3-story building as a lasting legacy. So again, I would ask that you vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next, I'm trying to read the writing, and I apologize if I slaughtered your name. Is it Donna Rimey? Did I say that right? All right.
I am Donna Rimey. I live at 1108 Southwest 14th Street. I believe that some of the actions that have happened over this has been back and forth for a very short time. I believe the most important thing that we have to think about for the future of Willmar is our water supply. Willmar is growing a lot. We have many, many new apartments going up. We have people coming in from all over. We have a building group on County Road 5. There's like 5 or 6 apartments. I know they're not senior living apartments, but the town is growing. And I think we need to be very, very concerned about what we do about our water. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Chris Frank?
Mayor, members of council, thank you for your time tonight. I just wanted to come up here because I know the city's been getting a lot of pushback for this project. I am the city planner of Willmar, by the way. I live at 1100 9th Street Southeast. And I just want to kind of give you I think we could improve the narrative from the city side, and a lot of citizens have been complaining about a lack of transparency. I know there was a letter published in the paper calling out the city planner. I don't know if they meant to call out my position specifically about why we are doing this project. And I just wanted to come up here, give my piece on why we are trying to do this. And you've heard a lot of talk tonight about the affordable senior housing. And I know a lot of members of the public have been asking, why are you doing it in this park? Why can't it be somewhere else? In that affordable senior living part is what makes it tricky. There was a previous senior housing park or plan from last year that did get moved off. We pushed that off because it was not worth it, because it did not have that affordability aspect to it. This proposal has the affordability aspect to it, and it is directly because of the synergy obtained with building directly next to Rice Care Center. This project cannot be built anywhere else in Willmar besides right next to Rice Care Center, and the probability that any other company is going to come in and choose any of the other developable sites in Willmar and choose to do affordable senior living is just not going to happen, or is extremely unlikely. Mr. Corbett stood up here and discussed our latest housing survey with you, which was somewhere along the lines of 600 senior units, 500 multi-housing apartment units, 400 single-family dwelling units. And even though it comes in third place, the 400 single-family dwelling units, when you start to think that that is 400 plus houses that need to get built, not apartment buildings that have 100 of those units in one unit, but 400 houses, that's just simply not going to happen in today's climate either. I think we're at 5 houses being built in Willmar right now.
That's right.
So the objective of this site would be to get some of those seniors that are currently staying in their houses into this site, and that affordable group are the ones hopefully living in those $100,000 to $200,000 homes right now. those are the ones we need to open up for all of our young workers that are coming to Willmar. Willmar is standing at a pretty unique time, I think, in its history. I'm an '04 grad who grew up here in Willmar. And with our recent expansion in the industrial park, the census coming out showing that we are growing while a lot of other surrounding rural cities are shrinking, show that what makes Willmar unique is our workforce. We have a very diverse population, and we are bringing in new workers to help expand and bring in new businesses to this industrial park and in just Willmar as a whole. And those young people coming into work need to be able to get their hands on a house to help build that equity, which brings together the actual American dream. If they come here and they're just sitting in rentals all the time, then they're going to be mobile and they're going to be able to leave Willmar when they need to or if they want to. So it's finding ways to get them in those houses that is so important from my point of view. I would like to point out as well that there has been discussions with Kira about they would pitch in on stormwater improvements for this area. Like I said, I'm an '04 grad. I grew up right next to that park. I was over there many times in my life, and that whole northern half of that South Swanson field is always wet. It's always full of water. It is not heavily used. That at best, it's people maybe walking their dogs along the trail and sidewalks around it. Nobody is using that green area, or at least not very much. Now, this project would include a stormwater improvement to that area that would now make that whole northern half way more usable. There could be a lot more activity on that parcel. Some of the green space would be lost to that building, but as we said, we have gone through many iterations trying to limit that loss of green space as much as possible. Along with those iterations, we have complied with all the requests from Minnesota Department of Health and all the engineering requirements to make sure we protect those wells, because obviously our water supply is of utmost importance as well. And we believe this new plan, which includes this building being built nearly at grade, is a residential facility that is not going to raise any risk of contamination, can coexist on this site with all this green space. Again, I'll finish with, this is a project that is probably not going to be come before us again. That is something I greatly recommend that this council tries to move forward with. And I hope from the city side that we can continue to work with utilities in trying to lock down a site that everyone can find acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next is Carol Willmar.
And I'll say it first this time, Carol Willmar from 1313 LA Avenue. And I said, well, I spoke a lot, but I guess that was in our utility meeting. So I'm just going to ask again, why are we doing this? Why are we giving up on our green space, as Christopher points out? Is this the only place in Willmar? Sure, it would be good to be close by. But they're going to have vehicles to take people back and forth. They'll have means of moving people around. And where they said that, look at what Bethesda has done here. And then you say, well, Bethesda's in New London and they're in Olivia, so they're all over too. They don't have all their housing and stuff in one area. So that's why I say about the senior housing. And again, this being one of those seniors in town here, this senior housing that you're looking at, again, I would ask that we think more about our green space and more about amenities for the seniors. How many of them drive around on scooters? I mean, it's not people at 65 that are probably giving up and going into a senior housing. They're much older than that. What are we doing for them? Could we do something else? Could we have a snack shack out there instead when they're out there, going up with their potential, going with their scooters and that type of thing? So it's just one more thing to think about when you're taking care of the housing for seniors, but there's more than just housing for them. So please take that into consideration. And I'm speaking as a taxpayer, but don't forget that I am a commissioner, so that I say no to the project. And I believe that we really are concerned about the well field. You can't prove it for absolute, but again, I say why. I ask why.
Thank you, Carol. Al Goldenstein?
Hi, I'm Al Goldenstein. I live at 1461 Hanson Drive Southwest. And I'd like to present each one of you with a pamphlet, if I may. There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Goldenstein, Mr. Goldenstein.
Yes.
Over here, can I have a copy of that, please?
Sure you can.
Thank you.
What I presented to you is a list of names that were gathered from residents in Willmar that are opposing the sale of the park. Now, the opposition to the sale, obviously, we've talked about the green space. My daughter's 30 years old. She learned how to ride bicycle in that park. And it was nice because she could go up on the hill. You could learn to do the steering before you had to do the pedaling. And so a lot of people use that park. And when we say it's a underutilized area, you can go by there. When I used to, I'm retired now, but when I'd go by there in the morning or in the evening, this time of year, I worked out west of Willmar, I traveled, there was always people in that park. So when you say there's not an organized facilities there, we've talked about that. I've talked about that with some counselors and said, why don't we put a pickleball court in there? Why don't we put an ice rink? We're always short of ice rinks in the winter. We can utilize that in other different situations for the year. Most importantly, though, by keeping that park, it's the water. I mean, most of all the signatures I gave you were collected by about 3-4 of us, and they had lots of questions about the water. Why would we even consider sacrificing our water? And, you know, it's most important to protect the water over there in Southwest Willmar, because we don't know if we build something there right now, what's the risks 20 years from now? And furthermore, what we have to look at, I mean, I've lived in my house since 1988. And I think the 2 wells that are out there were drilled in 2005, right? 4? So they're 20 years old right now. So will we have to drill additional wells out there? Yes. So what about the people that are going to live in Willmar 20 and 30 and 40 years from now? Your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids. We cannot sacrifice water for those people in the future. We cannot do that. Underutilization of a park was a reason. There was a purpose behind that. I think the airport got moved in, you said 2008, but I think it was 2006 when it got moved. And from 2006 forward, we've rejected selling that property for lots of reasons, and primarily the water right out there. We have to protect the water for all future generations and not look just 10 years down the road. We got to look a lot further than that. Municipal Utilities Commissioner Sean Muskie stated, the consequences are too high. If a problem occurs here, a sorry will be woefully inadequate. 10 years from now, a sorry will be woefully inadequate. That was me. But I mean, it would be unforgivable breach of public trust if there was an issue with this particular project. And what we're trying to do is decide on fate for our generations in front of us, not for us. I'm 67 years old, so I hope I live a long time and don't have to go in. But I look at the people that are living here, their children living here, and their children's children that will be living here. We have to protect the resources, both green space and water, for those individuals, not just who are sitting in this room right now. That's very short-sighted. for us. Kira, they want to inspire active living and proximity to care center. I understand that. But why is that the public's issue to provide that? And not only that, if we have to go into a park and sell a chunk of park off because it fits Kira best, when, for example, I was in the GIS yesterday and I measured, if you look at it, there's a piece right north of the Dorothy Olson Aquatic Center right now, that's about 1.5 acres. And there's a private piece right beside it, that's 1.5 acres. That matches right up against the walking path right behind it. We're not sitting on any kind of well system there, but it would be 3 acres and it would be in proximity to the park. Whether you're driving 300 yards or you're driving 600 yards to the care center, it really should be irrelevant. So there is other options out there. So is there other locations? Absolutely. We just have to look hard and look differently than what we're looking right now. We're focused on a piece of ground that municipal utilities say is a bad idea, state health saying a bad idea, and we've covered them all earlier. So we need to redefine what is important for not just us, but for the people that are going to be living in Willmar 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. And that in itself is a very important piece. The other part of that, if it were to happen, we're going to get a certain amount of money, but the Singer building has to be moved. And then the park or the skate park has to be gone. I remember when I first moved to town and I was going out there, that was a tennis court till about 12, 15 years ago. And nobody used it as a tennis court. And they switched it to a skating park, and it's used quite a bit. So if we wipe that out, who's gonna build that? We're gonna have to do some more paths. We have to move the Stinger building. Who's gonna pay for that? And we have to put a new skate park. Who's gonna pay for that? Is Kira or are we? I think I know the answer on that. So those are some things that we have to look at. And again, towards the end, professionals are against it. Municipal utilities are against it. Park and Rec's against it. Wellhead consultants are against it. Department of Health is against it. And West Central ran a poll today where if you're for or against it. And they've done this before, and I've watched that. Before I came here, I looked into that poll. 97% of the people were against it. 3% are for it. We have to listen to the people, the residents in Willmar. When they're saying it's a bad idea, we have to listen to that. We must listen to our professionals and listen to our constituents on what's going on out there. When I went and collected those names, and we all went and collected the names, I would say I probably got a couple hundred names there and out of there in that group. And I did get some no's. But I want to tell you what they were. They were from people who said, no, I can't because it's who I work for. And it's kind of a conflict. Or they say, I have a business in town, so I'm probably against it, but I don't want to sign it. That was the other one. And some other one said, I just don't feel comfortable because I need to know more. So I'm not going to sign it right now because I need to know more. And that's fine. And I never got one person say to me, to my face, I'm not going to sign that because I'm totally going for this. This is a great idea. And we did not get that from anybody. So when you have residents of Willmar saying, go somewhere else with this, bring it someplace else, do something different, think differently than we are right now. We're just so focused on that park. Think different. There's a place we can make it work, but it doesn't have to be in green space and on top of our water supply for 50 years from now.
Al, I started it out tonight saying limit it to 3 minutes.
Yep.
You've gone way over 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I know. I was looking for a timer and it wasn't there, so thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Next is Pam Adam.
I spoke. That's me.
Oh, okay. Then Kelly Gonzalez.
Callie Gonzalez, 2205 21st Street. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I've lived in Willmar all of my life. I grew up here. I raised my kids here. I played in the park that you are considering to erase. I've watched my kids play sports in the park you're considering to erase. I walk in the paths around the park that you're considering to erase. My question for you is why? Our city has plenty of space to put senior living facilities. Why this park? Why a park at all? Why is this even being considered? Our world is getting more industrial by the day. Communities, families, our kids are losing out on parks to play in. This park is used by many in our community. It is not unused or underutilized. It is not a forgotten park. The feeling that our city is failing us is very real, and I know my family and friends are not the only ones who feel this way. The destruction of this beautiful park would be nothing more than that of a transaction based on the almighty dollar, not what's best for or what's right for the people of the city of Willmar. The last thing I want to say is that I know I'm only one person and one voice, and my opinion may not matter to you. But if you allow the sale to go through, especially with so many of its citizens opposing this, it will matter to many, and we will have lost faith in this city and this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Next is Dennis Schaefbauer.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Dennis Schaefbauer, and I live at 1436 Grace Avenue Southwest. And I'm asking the City Council tonight to please reconsider the proposed sale of the Willmar Parkland. City Council members have the responsibility to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars of their constituents. If this development does lead to issues within the existing well fields, who will bear the responsibility? Will it be the city planner? No. Will it be the city administrators? No. Will it be the taxpayers of Willmar? Yes. By leaving this parkland undeveloped, the odds against future problems would greatly favor the taxpayers of Willmar. In other words, the best way to minimize any risk would be to leave this parkland as it is. This parkland has been described by some as, quote, passive, thereby requiring development. I believe that this green space should remain undeveloped for the enjoyment of all. I do agree that Willmar is in need of additional housing, but this is not the location. When Trident Development's senior housing proposal on this property was rejected last year, they were able to find and propose construction at an alternative site in Willmar. I believe that Cura could do the same and choose a different location for their construction project. And then just to kind of add to what Brian had said earlier, I hope we win the battle tonight, but we're never going to win the war. We're never going to win the war because 10 to 15 years from now, and perhaps sooner, there's going to be another developer that's going to eye that green space and want to put a building there. So we, the public, will always have to remain vigilant to this. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Dennis. Next is Owen Mole.
My name is Owen Moe, 1200 15th Street Southwest. It seems like the whole issue of this matter is affordability and trying to subsidize this project. At what, $30,000 an acre times 5, $150,000 for a $20 million, $30 million project, it seems like it's a small amount that Willmar is subsidizing this project on. But to replace that 5 acres or 4 acres would probably cost $100,000 or more an acre because of all the development and all of the infrastructure that would be needed for this new equivalent parkland. And once this building is built, it's going to last for over 100 years. So we're not going to have green space for over 100 years. That's 4 generations. So you got to think of the long term. I graduated in 1970 from Willmar. You know, that's 50 years ago. So you have to have a longer perspective than just some affordable housing. There's land all over the place. If you want to subsidize it, then go give them $2 million or whatever it takes to subsidize it so that they'll build it. But don't put it where there's so few green space around. So that's all I got to say. Any questions?
Thank you. Owen. Next is Megan Giles.
It's Megan Gillis, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, 1601 Hanson Drive Southwest. Mr. Mayor and council members, we keep coming around to this issue. If this was a good site, I think you would be very easy to approve this. You'd be like, oh yeah, no problem. It seems like we have a pretty large crowd here of people who don't support this, and it doesn't seem to answer your questions of yes or no. Okay. I don't have a problem with senior housing. I have absolutely no problem with senior housing. I have a problem with you selling my green space that my children and myself are going to be using for hopefully a very long time. I just invested a huge amount of money in my house. I'd like to have water, and I'd like to have property taxes that are manageable, and I'd like to have a green space near my home. I'd like to also address the issue a passive park, and that our park is underutilized. A definition of a park by Cambridge Dictionary says a park is a large area of land with grass and trees, usually surrounded by fences or walls and specially arranged so that people can walk in it for pleasure or children can play in it. Sounds like Swanson Field Park. This is not wasted land. This is our parkland. The Planning Commission did not approve. That was a tie vote. The Parks and Rec was not given the chance to vote on it, and the Willmar Municipal Utilities was voted not to approve at the iteration that they saw. This comes back to water. Once again, no matter, I don't know if you're going to be 5 inches or 10 inches, you're still messing with our water. I trust a gentleman named John Heron and my utilities company rather than somebody who has been studying wells for 3 months. I trust my utilities commissioners who have been there for years. My neighbors have been working for the utilities company for years. They're the ones that are afraid to speak up. I'm a piano teacher, and I have a waiting list of a zillion students, so I'm sorry. I can open my mouth and tell you, please, please, please do not build on our park.
Thank you, Megan. Eric Banks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just want to reiterate what everybody else has been saying. I'm opposed against this project. Worked for the city of Willmar, part-time or full-time. Over 40 years, been a lifelong resident of Willmar. Been on the Joint Powers Board 2 terms, also been on the Park Board. Different things that we've done as far as like the skateboard park, the dog park. We push those outside of residential areas so we wouldn't have to, deal with noise for the community and stuff like that. And now here we are bringing that out to the places where we put it. I was on the board when we decided to try to make Robbins Island and Swanson Field regional parks. Want to make it kind of that one-stop, playground area and stuff like that for community or for citizens of the city of Willmar. And people come to Willmar because of our parks. I mean, we got a very good park system compared to anybody in the state. You got towns that come in for tournaments or visiting. They love the open space out there. You know, I'm not saying we don't need senior housing, but I think that area is not the right fit. You know, like I said, and that park is not, I mean, it's used. I mean, just this last week, there are people that went out there and put up volleyball nets. They're practicing volleyball. You got baseball, and I guarantee you, if it does get built, you're gonna have complaints about whether it's lights, fireworks from baseball games, the traffic, or whatever. I think that area, as Willmar, everybody else has been saying, it's growing. 3, 5, 10 years from now, you're gonna wish you had that parcel of land out there. I just think you might not think it's a big piece of land, but it's a good chunk of land that the city desperately needs. And I think it's a mistake as far as, you know, jeopardizing our water system out there. So I think there are other options in the city that everybody else, or, I mean, you guys could take a look at, you know, whether it's Kira or you guys. So, and I think if they don't build here, you know, eventually somebody else will come in a short amount of time. So just want to voice my opinion. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Next, Joe Riddler.
Joe Riddler, 1912, 20th Avenue Southwest. Boy, a little heated tonight, eh? A lot of energy. A lot of energy for no. It's interesting, I read an article in Tennessee, Ford built a new plant down there. What was their number one thing they looked for before they dug one shovel of dirt? Water, good quality of water. So if our city is going to grow, think about that. Here's a multi-billion-dollar building being built. The first thing they wanted to know was there adequate water. So as we heard tonight, a lot of energy from Mr. Al. Thank you. It was interesting talking to people. There's a number of people that asked me to voice their opinion tonight, and I said I would. Talked with people that signed the petition no from 30 years old to 98 years old that still live in their own home. So we don't have the skies falling. We have all these statistics that in the future, it's a lot of, I don't believe all these reports. A lot of these people behind me are going, oh, he's full of BS. I don't think so. Because if it was that bad, why did Kira take the free handout we gave them a couple of weeks ago? They're in business. People have been coming and going. It's not like they have to be 200 yards from them. They're conducting business. They're driving people around. They got people coming and going. Hey, it employs people. So it's not all that bad. So I'm really having a hard time giving away green. I bust my rear end for Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, Minnesota Waterfall. What do we fight for? Green land. And you know that, Councilman O'Brien. You know. I've dedicated thousands of hours for green land. It's precious. A couple things you don't get back in life is time and green land. Think about that. We only get one shot. What's gone tomorrow, we don't get, or yesterday, we don't get tomorrow. We don't know. We got to think about this. There's a lot of angles. There's a lot of people that have given good examples tonight, a lot of energy. I would like to see somebody make a motion to cancel this thing tonight. Be done with it. We have enough evidence tonight. There's enough studies being done. Step up. You're here for the community, not for Kira. You're here for the people. You're elected for the people in your ward. And if the people in your ward say no, that's your job. Represent the people in your ward, please. Tonight, the vote should be no. Make the move. Let's get done with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any additional comments from any members of the public who have not already been heard? Yes, Kent.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, Kent Skoglund, 218th Avenue Northeast, Willmar, Chairman of the Park and Rec Board. Here we go again. I apologize, I didn't realize that now we're going to give away or sell the skateboard park. I know we talk about numbers, a parcel number, but so what's going to happen there? Are we going to do like our St. Paul legislature and make decisions and then realize later it's going to cost us a lot of money to replace that or the dog park? So my question is this replacing the skate park? Is that what this is about tonight?
Well, with this location.
Yeah, okay. I hear a lot about affordability. Man, that sounds political. What is affordability? Have they told you guys? I mean, I don't know. Nobody knows. Anybody else know? It seems to me if you build a building out there or you build it somewhere else in town, cost of your materials are going to be the same, right? What's the difference? Cheaper land, maybe. Okay. As Owen talked about, maybe it's a pretty good deal for them. So I think that's the key thing. They probably don't even know, they probably can't even give you a number. So I agree with Joe. It'd be great to have a motion just to get this behind us and go on with a lot of other things that are important for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Does the council have any questions of staff at this point? Julie?
Yes. Some of the things that people have addressed, what is the plan for the skate park? Where is the Stinger's office going to go? And what happened to the possibility of this going to the dog park?
Councilperson Osmus, thank you for your questions. I'll take the first one, which is the relocation of the the skateboard park. The skateboard park is due to be redeveloped. I believe the park is now 20 years old. According to our park plan and our parks director, it's time to make improvements to it. Our goal is to, when it's not in operation or being able to being used due to development, we will do engagement with skateboard park users and to find the best location within the 32 acres, as well as the improvements for the skateboard park. It was mentioned that this was a tennis court. It was never, the foundation of it or the base of it was never imagined to be a skateboard park. And so that's something that our Department of Public Works actually built. And so we would do engagement around that to reconstruct and design that.
I just think that's good to clarify that if people are making the comments that the skate park's going to be gone, we're taking that away, that they understand that there would be a plan.
Yes.
Councilor, I'd also like to add that the master park plan that was done in 2015 actually says that the skateboard park would be moved to the south side of the DOAC. So that was in the park plan to start with, at the master park plan. So it was never intended to stay there. It was in the park plan to move it.
I'd like to answer just the other two as well. You wanted to know about the Stinger's trailer. Is that correct? We had a conversation with the Stingers, and their suggestion would be to move it to the south of the parking lot, and we would pour the concrete at the city's cost with our Department of Public Works to make sure that it is stable there. And then the third part was why not the doll park? I think that's a great question. Not sure how that got out or why that got out. The doll park was not an option. It was done in 2018. It was a partnership with our nonprofits here in town. It is a utilized space, meaning that there's activity that is happening there. And so we did not find that feasible to relocate the dog park to a new site. So that'll be almost within 10 years rebuilding a perfectly fine dog park. So we did not move forward with that.
Mr. Butterfield, before I call on you, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. I came in late, was not able to sign that paper. I won't speak.
Okay.
Ron Christensen, 1912 Richland Avenue Southwest. Listening to the conversation out there, I made some notes. But first I want to ask who you're representing. Thank you for serving, by the way. Are you going to represent the people or the salesmen that come up here and want to build the senior housing? You were elected by these people back here. You need to listen to them. A couple notes I made. They're looking for a spot to build senior housing. What a better place than the Candy Mall. There's a heck of a lot of parking space out there that could accommodate a new building, or they could move into existing space out there. There's a lot of square footage out there, folks. You got parking, you got the medical facilities there, one level. I don't know why they want to use this park area. We need to keep the green space we have. You all know that. I heard the city planner say that you all seniors up there are going to sell your home for $100,000 to $200,000 and move into this place. How many of you up there seniors? There's 5, 6, 7 of you. How many of you are going to sell your house for $100,000 to $200,000 and move into that place? I want to die in my home. I don't want to move into congregate housing, and I don't think any of you want to, but you're going to force it on others. You want the seniors in Willmar to sell their homes, they're telling you that, and move into this congregate housing. You're crazy. How many are going to do it? Raise your hand.
I don't know, possibly,
Yeah,
Never know.
Possibly.
very possibly.
I don't have to shovel or mow.
I heard him mention affordable housing, and one other gentleman mentioned what's affordable housing. There's no such thing, folks. In today's economy, I've built homes for a living. I built over 50 senior living homes in the southeast of Willmar to help the housing for seniors in Willmar. They want to stay in their homes. One level living, they don't want to be in an apartment. I don't want to be in one, and I don't think any of you want it, maybe the mayor. With the current state of property taxes nationwide and in the city of Willmar, these young folks moving to Willmar can't afford a home. Mine are over $5,000 a year. When I moved into it, it was $2,000 something. Property taxes are making it impossible to maintain a home, a young couple in Willmar. You can't do it. You all got your property tax statements. You know what I'm talking about. I would also encourage you, somebody, one of you members, to make a motion to stop this project tonight. Somebody second it, vote on it. Let's see where you all stand. I'm really baffled by the fact you're even considering it, because there's so many reasons to not build that building there. There's many other empty parcels in Willmar. Dunnick's has a lot of property up by the mall. Shopping, ease of access. I even thought of Garfield School, the rink. Nobody uses it anymore. There's a spot there. I don't know if the neighbors would like it, but it is available. You could even go up by Eagles Landing. There's farmland out there. You could go to County Road 5. There's plenty more space out there. I also wonder who's who's really selling you this idea? Is it staff? Is it the administrator? Do you council members dare to stand on your own and buck the system, which is unelected people? Staff isn't elected. The administrator's not elected. You hired her. You need to be telling them what you want and expect Willmar to look like in the years to come. Not even speaking about the quality of water we're expecting in the future. Many of you up there, including me, won't be around in 10 years. But you better be thinking about those that are going to be. Do the right thing. Stop this tonight. Thank you.
All right, before I close the public hearing, is there anybody else? Yes, give me your name and address, please.
Patty Johnson, 1224 Southwest 18th Street. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, so I have nothing prepared, but I'm coming to you more from a plea from the heart. My backyard, I look over that property every morning, every night. That has been the place that my kids played. I echo what Eric Banks said. I was on the Joint Powers Committee for many years. We fought hard for our parklands, for our bike paths, and that they say is underutilized is not. Maybe when you drive by, but not for people who live there and walk those paths. And like I said, it's my sunset, and I look out every day. That's my backyard, which is also where the water holding pond will end up, even closer in my backyard. And my plea to you is that as a Willmar citizen for many years, I take pride in our parklands. I've lived next to the nursing home through the years. I've called several times to the nursing home over the years, asking them to contain their trash, yet I clean up the parkland behind my house. I walk those bushes. I walk that area because I have pride in our parks, and they don't. They didn't mind that their garbage was out there. During COVID, I would pick up masks and gloves, and my dog would run in with stuff from their garbage, and I would call. My pride was to clean up the land. Theirs was not. And I just ask you, when you add more of that out there, they're already showing that they're there for their business. They're not there for the community and the people that live around them. Because we have pride in that land. It's their business. Thank you.
Thank you. One more time, anybody have anything new to present to the council? I'll close the public hearing. I'll call on Christopher Corbett to summarize the item.
Before I summarize, were there any other questions? Thought I saw it.
Yeah, Tom, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. I got a phone call from former Mayor Marv Calvin today. He brought up about it was going to be at skate park. We discussed that on how all that came about. I don't remember tennis court being out there. That was brought up. I remember it was a BMX sports cycle there for a while in the mid-'80s. And then Marv said they went out and got a grant to get that skate park done. Concrete's going to last 100 years. It's only, if it's 20, 25 years old, there's still a lot of life left in there. And Marv is not in favor of selling any of that parkland. I have great respect for Marv. He served our community very well. I have respect for everybody that stood up tonight doing all this. I would like to make a motion that we will not sell any of the Swanson Field parkland now or in the near future.
I'll second that.
We got a motion and a second discussion. Justin.
I was wondering if you could respond to some of one of the questions that we heard a lot during the public hearing that apparently, I don't know if people have heard a good response to, is why this location? And I think that there's been some reasons that that you've at least voiced in previous meetings for that, but perhaps people in the room have not heard that before. Could you explain why this location, why not other locations?
So a few things, thanks for the question. A few things comes to mind, and Tom, you may want to join me for this one as well. So the first thing is that when you look at this site, it promotes active living. And I can imagine at the age of 55 for a tenant that could qualify for a unit here, and they would take advantage of the trails and walkability here on site. It also promotes the wellness and rehabilitation that happens as well. Tom, do you want to share about the reason why it should be close
Just
to?
the sheer affordability of staff continuity between the care center and the assisted living. A couple of comments to that. I mean, for those who lived during COVID, the care workers.
Tom, you
Tom, you should come to the
microphone,
podium.
please.
One is just the sheer location of the care center on affordability and staffing. If anybody works in healthcare or lived during COVID, picking up a mask was pretty minor. There's 50 nursing homes in the state of Minnesota that are going to be closing in the next 12 months because they weren't strategic in their plan. Rice Care Center will be on that strategically if we don't do senior housing to be strategic. Of the 50 that are closing, they have no senior housing. They're not part of a bigger network. So the work that we do is bigger than ourselves. So again, as we look at this on the motion of not doing it, that's fine. But when we strategize of the care center, it may not stay in Willmar, just because we need to be strategic on senior housing. And heaven forbid, if we ever have another COVID outbreak, hope we have a place to live and stay, because that's not the option in a lot of communities. So when you vote, I hope you think about that, to be strategic. Yes, there are options in this community, but are they affordable? For those that have less than $3,500 in assets that go live in a private pay assisted living, when their assets are downspent, they're asked to leave. And that's the products you have in Willmar today. So if that's important when you say those people, these are people that live in the city of Willmar. These are aging seniors.
Why would you want to build?
I'm speaking right now. Come on.
No, you're out of line, ma'am. Ma'am, you're out of line.
Thank you. What's that? Thanks.
Tom, since you're up there, a couple more questions. Other possibilities on this site that take us out of the well field? Anything that you've looked at in the past with city staff that might be possible? Anything you've looked at the EDC, perhaps south of the existing building, where we're not?
Every place we move on the site, there's always another field. You don't want to be behind the residential housing, because that would be the next piece. They don't want it behind their house. So again, a vote on today is certainly your guys' decision, but for proximity to the care center, it is this location where we're just
South
not
of
doing senior
Doak.
housing. Yeah, what's that?
How about south of Doak? Is that something that you've looked
I'm unfamiliar with where that's at. So.
Could you speak, has that been something that's?
So the
been looked
south of Doak is potentially a site that utilities can explore for water as well. I'm going to remind everyone that we have not relocated any of the test wells. Those test wells can stay, and this development as proposed does not impede on the development of future wells.
Julie?
Okay. I'm just going to go back a little bit because I feel like a lot of people don't understand all of the conversations that have happened and the thought that went behind this. And, you know, sometimes I've heard comments that, you know, we quickly made these decisions, or what are we thinking? And there's a lot of, I call them sad discussions about city government. When somebody comes up and is bashing everything that we're doing, we have the best interest of the city in mind, okay? I'm going to, just before everybody gets all riled up here, I'm not in favor of building in this park, okay? So now you can listen, okay? But I'll go with a year ago, when Trident approached the city to sell the land. I was not in favor of it then. And it came as a proposal in a closed session because we were selling city land. And there wasn't a lot of agreement on the council to sell it. And so that's kind of where it went. It went to Park and Rec, and the Park and Rec Department recommended not to sell the parkland. And I would expect that. They are the Park and Rec Department. They're on that committee, they're on that board because they care about the parks. So I would expect them to vote that way, okay? Then we found out some other information. So when you think, why did we even consider this? You know, what are we thinking? Okay. Some other information came out. So at that time, the Park and Rec Department said, when we talk about that this was underutilized, that we're not, when a lot of people are talking about the paths and the park, the paths weren't going to move, the park was still going to be able to be utilized. We're talking about the area that flooded. And the reason the Park and Rec never put anything there is because it flooded. And that was a part of the stormwater phase 2 that was going to happen out in Swanson Field. Phase 1 was the big retention pond south of Baker Diamond. Phase 2 was going to happen. We had to do something with that water and why it floods there. So at that time, there were some figures like $1 million that was floated around of what it would cost for phase 2. And we have $7 million that's in the local option sales tax, because one of the hugest issues that people had, citizens had, was street repairs and stormwater. So $7 million went into the local option sales tax. So some of that was going to get used for phase 2 of that the retention pond to do something with that flooding water. So the city's going to have to spend $1 million. So then when Kira says, we will pay half of that because they're also not going to want to build in a flood area, then you look at, okay, that's $500,000 that the city can now use elsewhere. So then people say, what, you're going to sell out for money? That's what it's down to? But we were going to have to spend $500,000 there anyway. $1 million and $500,000 we could use other places. So I look at the Blue Field in North Swanson, or in the Swanson Field complex, and they need lights. So whether that's $250,000 or $350,000, they could get the lights. I mean, that money could be utilized. You think, well, what's in it for me? What's in it for me as a citizen? That's what was in for it. We could use some of that money for some of the other parks. It could be park complexes, building structures in some of the other parks where we had to replace a lot of the playground equipment. And unfortunately, when we did the local option sales tax money and the projects on North Swanson, we had to work around all those well fields. Now we find out that we were just a few years ahead of our time there. I see Mary Sawatsky was in the back. She would have loved to have been able to plan a cloverleaf field. Is that what it's called? Pinwheel field in that area. But we had to work around the wells. And now they're only going to be around for about another year or so. And we could have done that. Unfortunate. But we still have some beautiful projects and some beautiful fields and work that was done there. No regrets. No regrets. So that was the one part. Park and Rec said, we don't use that land. So if you talk about underutilized or whatever, and yes, people do use it as far as the walking paths and everything, that would still be there, okay? Then we had Public Works Department for the city that said if we didn't have to mow it, if we didn't have to maintain it, that would be nice. We have 37 parks in this city, and not having to mow and take the manpower and that money would be good. So now we've got 2 departments in the city that are saying, we don't have any objection to a building going up there. Then at that time, utilities sent a letter to Aaron Backman at the Economic Development Commission and said that it was fine, that there was no issue with building there, and that was how many months ago? Okay, so then I started to change my mind and go, okay, initially my thought was not that green space, not what's a building going to look like in the middle of that whole baseball complex and that green space. But then I saw some of the advantages to the rest of the citizens and the city, and we've already talked about that ripple effect of the people moving out of their houses. Nobody's forcing anybody to move out of their house and move into an apartment complex. It's an option. It's something that could happen, and then those houses turn over. They're going to in 20 or 30 years. My house is going to turn over in 20 or 30 years. So we need that to happen. We desperately need housing. We've made that clear tonight. So that was another selling factor that was in the favor of this area. Well, then there was a lot of discussion about that it didn't go back to Park and Rec, that it was like they were end-arounded, and there was some frustration with that. And I get it. I get it. These are citizens that serve on that board. They care about their parks. That's why they're serving. And so, whether woulda, coulda, shoulda, we knew where the outcome was going to come from that. If they didn't want Trident to build there, they weren't going to want Cura to build there. They're going to protect the parks. I know how they're going to vote. We all know how they're going to vote. Should it have gone to there as just a formality? Maybe. But that wasn't, it still comes to the council. The council still has to make that decision no matter what they recommended. So that, there's a part on that where I go, that whole conspiracy theory that they bypass them for a reason. Hogwash. That, nothing like that was done intentionally or with any underhanded notion behind it. We're up here for good things. We want to do good things for our city. Then we talked a lot about sites. I just hope that you totally understand. We did have these discussions about all these other sites. Parkland on the south side, and the dog park. When I heard that one, I thought, that's the win-win. Al Goldenstein proposed that one. And I went, that's the win-win. So, and I get that the people who wouldn't be happy with that are the people who built that dog park. And so we had a lot of citizens that worked a lot of years to make that happen. And again, there's other places for that as well. We still have, there's Parkland down by Menards. That would be a great place for the dog park as well. So all of these places were looked at. A lot of them didn't have the space. And then people started going around with the petition. And that, as a council member, we sometimes have to look at that and go, okay, what's their intent? Why do they feel so strongly that they're going to go door to door? Now, until you know who it is, I feel like their intent was good. They felt strongly that they wanted to do that. Some people that were going door to, that signed the petition have said, I just wanted the person gone. I just wanted them off my steps. Some people say that they didn't feel comfortable telling them no while they were there, so they signed it. That's all good and fine. I don't care. I just know that people cared to do a petition and felt strongly to go door to door about that. We had to look at, are they developers? Is there a hidden reason why they would do that? Is that, do they have any financial gain if that isn't built there? They don't. They didn't. But those are things we also have to look at. There's a lot more behind these decisions than what's on the surface and maybe what you hear about. I don't like hearing the negativity against the city that when they, of what was happening going door to door. This is not an attack on our city administrator. This is not an attack on our planning and development. And this is not an attack on Kira. These are business people. They want the best for the city. They wanted to just build, they're a good company. You know, they don't want to be the bad guys. They saw a need, and yes, obviously, it made sense for them to build next to the nursing home. And then again, you go, that's a whole nother issue again that comes into play with all of this. Was there some under-the-table agreement with Kira? No, that did not happen, okay? They were temporarily running it, doing a good job, and when we talk about if somebody says that we gave it to them, that we have something between the city and Kira, there is nothing, okay? If Kira didn't take over, they're the only ones who wanted to take over that nursing home. If they didn't take over that nursing home, we would lose it. We would lose it to our citizens, to the people of Willmar, would not have that care facility after they had their hips done, after they had their knees done, when they had to rehab. So that was a good move to be able to keep that facility in our community for our citizens. So then the well issue came up. Big issue, a serious issue. And I'm just going to say that is a serious issue. And a lot of the comments that have been made, I agree with. I take to heart that if they can say there's 99% chance that it won't affect our well, there's still that 1%. And I'm not willing to take that chance. And I do have to represent the people in Ward 2. And I do have to represent the people, be the voice for the people who have called me, who have contacted me, who have emailed me. And so I wish there was a place for Kira to build this facility, because we do need, when we talk about affordability, we're talking about the people that need to live there. We need some of that housing. Not everybody's going to be able to afford Bethesda. They can build more housing, but not everybody's going to be able to afford to live there. So we still have needs. And I've gone back and forth for what I felt were the right reasons. And right now, because of the well issue and the green space and the citizens of Ward 2, I don't feel like I can vote in favor of it.
Councilperson Osmus, I want to thank you for taking the time and really voicing your opinions and stating the facts. I think that is the intention of tonight, to just get the facts out. I understand opposition is oftentimes fueled by misinformation, and if my job today is to look at a site objectively and to provide you all with the facts so you all can make a decision. So I thank you for sharing your thoughts. I really do.
I just want to speak to the affordable housing piece. You know, it was said here that I would not move to affordable housing because I'm going to live in my home until I die. Well, my father lived in a unit like this in Owatonna because he couldn't live at home anymore. He couldn't do anything for himself. He couldn't afford a fancy nursing home, but he could afford the place he moved into, and it was really nice. And he could pay for different services that he needed. He didn't have a lot of money, so, you know, he passed away, but it would have been covered, and he could have stayed there without moving. So I can see the value in this. And to the question of what is affordable housing, Mr. Opatz, could you explain that to everyone?
I can start, and you
Or
want to
you
join me
can.
at the podium? You want to join me at the podium? It's 50% AMI, that's $33,000 a year. That will be at the start.
Primarily in simplistic terms, so there's elderly waiver and GRH in the housing sector. It's really like a Medicaid product. So when you downspend your assets to have about $3,500 in assets, you're eligible for an elderly waiver GRH program. So you're primarily impoverished to have the affordability piece. So if you don't have the means beyond that, right now in Willmar, you would not have a place to live for senior housing.
Right. Thank you.
Carl?
Yeah, I'd just kind of like to address what Vicki was just saying too. I honestly, seriously hope that none of you have to move into an assisted living center. We all want to stay in our homes, but sometimes we don't have a choice. Going through that right now, it's not always a choice. It's choice sometimes your children have to make for you. I'm going to vote no tonight too because of the water, strictly because of the water right now. I love this plan. I think it would work. But again, I think we can't say with 100% surety that the water will be safe. And so I have to vote no for that reason too. But I think to hear that people aren't going to move in there, that's wrong. People will move in there. This is a need, and it's going to have to be addressed somewhere. And I feel bad because I think this is a great thing. I think this would work very well here, except for the wells. So I would have to vote no as well.
Justin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm joining some of my colleagues up here in stating that there's certainly been some times where I've seen some huge advantages to this project. I appreciate the work that's been done. I think a lot of the information that's gone out into the public hasn't been necessarily full or complete. I think some of that is on the city and maybe not communicating that as well. And some of that is probably like you get really passionate as a listener and maybe you're not hearing the fullness of it. I can't vote to override the recommendations from the Municipal Utilities Commission. I can't move forward with the project that they're opposed to. I do have a question as to what it exactly is that we are voting on tonight, though. The motion is not clear to me, and so I don't know if Mr. Scott could provide some.
I can share that, but first, I just want to point out a few things that Utilities is not opposed to the fourth iteration of this site or the third iteration of this site. We have followed both the Minnesota Department of Health guidelines in designing this parcel, as well as the recommendations from Carlson and McCain as well. We've also hired a third-party engineer to take a look at this and not be biased at all. And their recommendation is that the project could proceed. The development does not impede on any future well development as well. So, John, I'm not sure if you want to share or if you can back me up on that you all are not in opposition of iteration 4, that you're still waiting to hear back from your consultant. Is that correct? Okay, just for the record, I did want to state that.
Robert?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So I did want to just address the procedural issue underlying the action item in your council packet tonight. And the recommendation, as the mayor noted before opening the public hearing, is not to take final action to approve anything tonight. It's to amend the ordinance that had been introduced originally some months ago, on which you've already had one public hearing and now a second tonight. And the reason that is the action item is because of a requirement in the Willmar Charter that once an ordinance has been introduced and a public hearing is conducted, it can certainly be amended, but it cannot be cannot be adopted until the ordinance is republished in its amended form and given a second public hearing. So the recommendation in the packet was to amend the ordinance to reflect this newest site plan that Mr. Corbett presented to you and set a public hearing on that site plan for June 3rd. I do want to also just offer my experience in the last week. I've engaged directly with City Administrator Valiant and Utilities General Manager Herron to try and facilitate discussions on this project and see if consensus can be built. And I will say that the site plan, to my knowledge, that was presented to you tonight was first provided, again, to my knowledge, to city staff last Wednesday. And that was a couple days after the Utilities Commission met and voted to submit the letter to you that Mr. Herron read into the record. And discussions ensued. I thought they were encouraging discussions on whether that most recent iteration of the site plan was viable and would address everyone's concerns. I'm going to just offer my perspective on this for a minute, if that's okay, which is that it may have been premature to ask the council to take formal action tonight on that site plan, given the short turnaround from the time it was first produced and given to the utilities for review. The utilities obviously meets the Mondays that the council does not. I fully expect this would be an agenda item on the utilities next meeting. I don't know that for sure. I can't speak for them, but it has been every time there's been an issue for them to consider. So to summarize, the action item tonight was to essentially start the procedure to approve an ordinance authorizing the sale of the new site to Cura. You cannot take final action on that tonight because you need to amend the ordinance first. Obviously, the motion pending before you would be to essentially stop this process. That's a perfectly legitimate action for the council to take if you've heard enough and you don't think there's any way that you could support any iteration of this project. Another option I will give you is to pause. You could table action, wait for additional information to come back evaluating the most recent site plan that was presented. I know that Mr. Herron was diligent about getting that to his consultants as soon as he received it last week. I expect he will be hearing back from his consultants soon. I don't have a date for you, and I don't know if Mr. Herron knows anything further. But so those are the three options I guess I would give you. The council, the action item in your packet was to essentially set in process the procedure to amend the ordinance and approve the revised site. That's one option. Option two is the motion pending to stop the project, and option three would be pause and allow this to play out further.
I guess I'm looking for clarification about option two. I'm not sure. I certainly heard Councilmember Butterfield express in his motion that this site or that this sale would be off the table, that we're saying no to that. But I also heard him express and no sale of this parkland for the foreseeable future. Foreseeable future, not exactly. I'm not sure what that means in this case. And I'm also assuming that in theory, next year, council could sell this land regardless of that motion passing or not. Is that accurate?
Certainly, I can't speak for the maker of the motion. To my ear, that sounded like a motion to stop this project and essentially set the council policy to not pursue any version of this project. Foreseeable future is undefined. At some point, if a new project materialized, I don't believe that motion would prohibit the city council from taking action on that project.
All right.
Just to make this clear, my motion is not to sell, to build on this property now or in the future. We need to protect our wells. I've been against building out here since day one. The very first closed meeting, I got chewed out for pulling my phone out, showing all pictures, which I shared to many of you guys tonight, of my son and one of his friends playing in waist-high water from 2022's rainstorm. and I shared it with a lot of you guys. When Kira came up, I asked him, I got pictures on how bad it floods over there. You want to see them? He said no. And right then and there, I went up to Julie Osmus. I have a clean conscience. I was filling them in on how bad it was. They didn't want to hear it. But now, the wells came in play. I'm 5 generation. My son's 6th generation in Willmar. And that got brought up. How many more generations are going to be in Willmar here? And if we don't have water to protect the future generations, it's done and over with. I do not want any building out here as long as we have water wells out there. That's what I'm protecting, everybody in Willmar and future generations. This company said, we may close it. We want businesses here that are going to be like Jenny-O, that's going to donate to the city, donate out to Robbins Island, that wants to be part of the communities here. You know, not just ones that are looking for a free handout or a little bit easier else. We got TIFs out there, we got tax abatements. You know, we got another one on the table. I think it's a little bit too long a term, but we have other options for them to help them out build this up. They just have to dig in and look for it. And I just don't want to see any building, no matter what it is if it's a grocery store, a convenience store, a nursing home, you know, affordable living, housing, we need all that, but not out here that can wreck our water.
All right, Tom. Mike is next, and then Audrey.
We've talked a lot about the population of Willmar and how it's growing. Okay. You're right, Joe. You don't give up green space. You do not give up green space. You give up green space, it's gone. That's what I did for over 20 years. I also protected aquifers. That was part of my job as well. I know what can happen to aquifers if they get tainted in any way, shape, or form. We cannot afford to lose the water in this city. This plant that we're building, I believe, I'm on the Municipal Utilities Board, okay? This new plant that we're building does have something to do with these aquifers. Is that correct? And so, here again, that's a plan that the city has, the municipal utilities has. They're building this very, very expensive plant on Lakeland because of the aquifers that we've been blessed with. This is something every community doesn't have. We're very, very fortunate to have these aquifers and these wells in this community. So, I don't think it takes too much to figure out common sense for how I'm voting, right? But the deal is, I've worked with all this. And I'm not just doing this out of a drop of a hat. I'm doing it because I have specific information that I have dealt with most of my life, most of my adult life, put it that way. Okay?
All right, Audrey?
Thank you, Mayor Reese. I have been tentatively hopeful for this project. And I would say I was looking forward to us being able to cross the Ts and dot the Is, that we had satisfied that our wells are okay and are protected from that standpoint. And I think Representative Baker, when he started off, said he was supportive of it with checkoffs, and he referenced the utilities. And I thought we were getting there. I was going to vote or make a recommendation to table this to get there, that we could clearly say we are protecting the wells. We are protecting the future also in looking at, I mean, someone talked about we'll be shutting the wells off on the north side. What's the next plan? We talked about the different levels of 20 feet and 50 feet in what happens if something happens to this area, whether there's a building on there or not. There are lots of things that could go wrong. I saw this as an opportunity to develop this parkland because we won't do anything with it if we don't do this. We have other stormwater areas that need to be dealt with, and we are doing that with our streets on a daily basis. We had a partner here that was interested in doing this and was willing to share in the cost of a retention pond that I felt was going to help this area, help the Stinger Field, help the other area, and perhaps even the water that stands on the north side of the road. So I was hopeful with this, and so I'm very disappointed that it has turned into a concern. For parks, I helped to work to develop the dog park. We raised money, we did things. There are lots of other parks that we should be concerned about and doing things with, not just this space. And I think this is an opportunity for us to enhance that area with that. And I'm sorry, that's where I'm coming from with that. There are other areas in this also that could be developed to the south. There are other, with that, I think we have worried about the stormwater, we've worried about the wells, we have worried about the parkland and what's best for it with that. And so I'm disappointed in that we are going to basically be voting to not do anything, and it will stay as it is.
The park, if I can reply to Councilperson Nelson, with this building or not, stormwater needs to be mitigated, and so that pond will still have to be built. I spoke about the initial concern from utilities of infiltration. An easy solution would be to line it, but that still needs to happen. And so there's still improvements without this site, it will be 36 acres. It's still an opportunity to reimagine what this area looks like, and we could do that.
This has been such a hard issue for me, probably the hardest thing since I've been on council, because I too felt like this was a great project. I can envision elderly people walking on the paths and getting exercise, seeing kids playing and really enjoying the space. Also, I think a bunch of people in here are going to need a place like that sometime. And that is looking at the future of our community. But just with all the opposition and again, the wells, I can't support it, but that makes me really sad. I hope we can find a place near here that works, because I think it's important. We do need it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Let's call the question.
All right,
Which one?
the motion to say no. What did we have? Audrey, what?
Well, could someone just read what the motion is?
That's what I was gonna do,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
I believe the motion is to not sell parkland or any part of Swanson Field at this time or in the foreseeable future.
All right,
Cl-
Julie?
Clarification. Any parkland?
Swanson Field.
It didn't say that.
It does say Swanson Field or any part of Swanson Field.
Okay. Okay, but the parkland, just clarification, that it didn't then get misread as the parkland was the first part, or any part of Swanson Field was the second part.
The way I
Just
understood
dealing
that
with
he
Swanson.
said it was to not sell any part, sell any of the parkland or any part of Swanson Field.
Okay.
I'd like to have foreseeable future clarified.
Well, I'm just pushing this down,
20 years.
20 years.
I don't think we can.
Can I just ask, again, my assumption is that at any point in the future, this council or a future one could take a vote and that wouldn't matter? This doesn't protect, we could sell parkland in 3 months, we could sell parkland in 19 years.
One way or another, if the council, a majority of the council wish to pursue a project in the future, this motion would not prevent that. The council would have options to rescind or reconsider the vote, or just to set a different policy at that time.
Okay?
One more thing. With this all being said, I was gonna wait till the end of the meeting, but I'm gonna say it now. I am gonna run for reelection.
But,
So, when that comes up, if it comes up and if I get reelected,
Tom,
I will be voting no.
all right, roll call.
Councilmember Davis,
Am I saying yes to no?
Yes to his motion not to sell.
Okay, yes.
Schultes,
Aye.
Fagerly. Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Osk,
Aye.
and Nelson.
No.
7 yeses, 1 no.
The motion passes. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute recess.
Thanks for hearing us. Thank you.
Number 11.
All right. Public safety aid purchases. Fire Chief Frank Hansen.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, hopefully this will be less painful. I'm here before you to present and ask for allocation of some public safety aid that the city received back in December. Through the legislature, the city received one-time public safety dollars of $922,000. Staff met and developed some priorities for that money. And the priorities that we came up with to present to you tonight are approximately $403,000 to Rosenbauer for the fire truck that we've already agreed on, $289,000 for radio equipment for the fire department, a little over $207,000 for radio equipment for the police department, and a little over, just about $17,000 for a respiratory fit testing equipment that will be used for the police department, the fire department, utilities, wastewater type thing. So short and sweet, that is where we are sitting. I'll stand for any questions.
We need a motion to approve the resolution to fund the public safety aid.
I'll make that
money.
motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Questions? Audrey?
Is this just a one-time thing? They didn't do any more of this?
That's correct, just
We're
one,
just gonna
just
get one.
one time.
So we have a little left to spend?
We have like a little over $5,000 left.
Is there a time, you'll make sure it's spent?
We will make sure it's spent.
Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank
Maybe
you.
even a little bit more than that.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
I just have a quick question, and I kind of assume I might know the answer, but your department is spending a lot more for those radios than the police department. Why is that?
Our radios are a little bit more heavy duty, heat resistant, chemical resistant, that type of thing.
Yeah, police department taking it easy, right?
Yep.
Yep, got it.
They get the easy route. Yep.
They only face bullets.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Shoulders.
Aye.
Baggerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien. Osk.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
And Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 noes.
That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Next is MnDOT Cooperative Agreement for Willmar Municipal Utilities Lighting Project on Highway 12. John, we've kept you up beyond your bedtime.
Yeah, that's quite all right. I didn't fall asleep yet. Before you tonight is a resolution accepting a grant from MnDOT from the state of Minnesota in the amount of $81,079. And that is 50% of the cost to install the streetlights on Highway 12 that were taken down when that section of highway was reconstructed back in 2014. So we'll be installing lights on both sides of that roadway of Highway 12. And MnDOT's willing to pay half if we're willing to accept their grant application. Any questions?
Be LED lights then?
Yeah.
We need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Audrey?
Yeah, question. Excuse me. There's a statement in here that said you received a request and concerns about some businesses as to when the lights would return. Without street lighting, intersections are difficult to see. Is that something that's going to be addressed, or is it just the reality?
No, excellent question. That project, Highway 12, was reconstructed back in 2014. MnDOT hasn't requested the lights to be reinstalled. Some of the property owners along there started asking questions when that was going to take place because there's dark spots. So MnDOT agreed that the light should go back up there, and they have been working with the utilities in the design. Actually, they designed the light layouts to minimize the dark spots to the greatest extent possible under lighting standards, so.
So soon? Or it will,
Hopefully by the end of summer, we'll have it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on permitting and the bulk of the material, light standards and stuff, we were able to receive them unlike other electrical components that take a year and a half. So from a material perspective, we're sitting in a good position, and we're still working on the permitting that goes along with that, so, yeah.
Any
Thank you.
other questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Osk,
Aye.
Nelson,
aye.
Davis,
Aye.
and Schultes.
Aye.
8 yeses, 0 nos.
Right, thank you.
That passes. All right, Director report update.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it seems like it was just up here. So, department update for April. I believe in your packet was the statistics for April. We did respond to 24 fire calls and 5 first responder calls, which brought our total up to 106 fire calls for the year and 38 first responder calls. Average response time from when the page goes out to when the first big fire truck leaves was 6 minutes and 45 seconds in April, and year-to-date average response time is 6 minutes and 20 seconds. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Frank? Julie?
Where are you at for personnel openings?
We are hiring 3 actually start this week, which will bring us to 36. So we're still 4 short. But slow but sure, we're getting back up there.
Anybody else? Rick?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the time frame is that within standards then?
Yeah, it's a good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, raising our insurance rates because of the time?
No.
Okay.
No, it's got nothing. No, we're
That's
good.
good.
We're good. I would just like to say, we did receive an email, or I just received an email today from the DNR and Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. We did have a diesel fuel spill out on the Railroad Y a week ago Friday. And they did commend our quick response and our appropriate actions, so the diesel would not get into Hot Creek. It stayed into a drainage ditch. So they said it could have been pretty bad because it would have ended up going possibly to the Minnesota River. So they were very happy with.
What was there, a leak on a engine, or?
It got overfilled.
They filled it out there?
Yeah, they fill them out there, and that it got overfilled by about 200 gallons.
Oh.
So it was a minor.
Right,
Oops.
Justin?
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about this in connection to what the big issue of the night, right? When it comes to the wells and the aquifer. With the railroad running so close to that, if something happens like that and there's a spill, what have we done to look into that possibility? What's likely to happen? Are there procedures in place to guard against that aquifer being polluted by a spill like that from the railroad?
There is procedures in place. We do have a hazardous materials team that's trained for spills like that. And then also BNSF has their own response team. And then we'll probably end up calling a team out of Marshall in. So fairly quick response, but we can usually get the initial containment and then we start bringing in other resources.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody? Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Justin?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I hope my stumbling through this is a little easier than our first few hours of the meeting. So, The goal of this presentation tonight is to give you all and the public a small sample of the work that is being done in the Public Works Department. I would like to begin with some highlights from our wastewater department. As you all know, the wastewater department provides crucial services to our city that oftentimes takes place behind the scenes. A variety of water testing and sampling takes place daily. These tests include pH, biological oxygen demand, total suspended solids, ammonia, and phosphorus, just to name a few. All of these tests are required for compliance with our National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. This is a 5-year permit that we renew and is required by the EPA. Our staff does an excellent job of permits compliance, as evidenced by their certificate of commendation that they just received from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. A few other honors I would like to share and recognize include Environmental Specialist Sarah Sietzma's graduation from the LEAD program last month, formerly Vision 2040, and also Operator Sam Lundstrom has been nominated for the Minnesota Wastewater Operations Association Operator of the Year. So we're very proud of those two. The department has also been hauling their solids from the plant to various farm fields in the area and are expected to finish that process this week. This is an important step for disposal of the biosolids that happens in the spring and fall. It allows us to free up storage space at the plant and also provides fertilizer to area fields. The staff continues to give plant tours to several classes from area schools. This has taken place over many years, and we as staff feel this is an important resource and educational opportunity that we can give students in the community. It gives them a firsthand look at all the time and work that goes into this process. Our wastewater staff, in conjunction with the public works staff and the Bolton and Mink staff, have also worked on the various requirements of our MS4 stormwater permit. This is another 5-year permit that we have been working very diligently on completing. Public education, staff training, on-site inspections, documentation, and a variety of other requirements are all part of this permit. And I would like to thank, I would like to thank our planning and development staff, our parks and recreation staff, and both the fire and police department for their cooperation and staff training. At this point, I'd like to transition to the Public Works Department. As I just mentioned, they have been out inspecting and mapping all our ponds and outfalls inside the city limits. The outfalls are points where stormwater is collected, where collected stormwater discharges out of structures such as pipes and culverts. And as you can imagine, this is quite the large undertaking. They look at the conditions of these outfalls and document any maintenance items that will need to be done. But after this process is completed, we will have GPS coordinates of all these structures, and we'll be able to create a comprehensive list that can be used going forward. I will add that these inspections and mapping was previously handled by our internal engineering department, and so it has since fallen on other departments such as wastewater and public works to keep the process moving. Some of the day-to-day happenings at the Public Works Department include mowing, playground maintenance, field maintenance, daily locates for sanitary and storm mains, brush site maintenance, and crosswalk paintings. The crew has also turned on water to all of our shelters, restrooms, and the splash pad, and they have put out all the docks and the fishing piers. As the weather permits, we are looking to paint some yellow curb, complete various concrete projects, and continue our street patching. At this time, I would also like to commend Ben Saunders. He's an operator at Public Works. He also completed the LEAD graduation last month. Are there any questions so far? Or would you like me to finish?
Keep going.
Okay. I'd like to touch on a few specialty items next. Some of the, I would say, more, I don't want to say hot topics, but I can't think of a better word right now. The first is private lawn mowing complaints. Over the last few weeks, we've received numerous calls and emails regarding grass length on lawns and how our process goes, that if grass or weeds is longer than 7 inches tall, we send a letter to the property owner stating that the lawn must be mowed, and that owner then has 7 days from the date of the letter to mow their property. If not, at that point, then city staff will go over, mow, and then bill the owner for equipment and labor.
A lot of them,
Yes,
over 20 inches.
yes. And we're out, and
Absolutely ridiculous.
it is sad because it's a very tedious process because we have to take the call, send someone out to look at it, go back, send a letter, check on them again after a week, mow. It's a very tedious process, and I would encourage the residents to be aware of that.
So when you're out doing that, you see one lot and driving down, you see 5 more. They do those at that same time?
Yep, doing those at that same time too.
Because I was just on the north side this weekend, bring my son over to his buddies,
Mhm.
and it wasn't very pretty.
No, it's not. And I don't have the exact number of notices that we've sent out in the last 2 weeks, but I would say it's well over 30 or 40,
And we've got it
unfortunately.
right on First Street.
Right on First Street. There's a couple notable properties that have some long grass.
Like a gas station, convenience?
So it doesn't take a citizen's complaint in order for them to get a letter?
I would say we don't actively go out, like I won't send someone out, hey, go look for lawns today. But as we're going somewhere and we notice something, or we were checking another lawn and like Councilmember Butterfield says, we see 5 more, now's the time to do it. Yep.
Just a question, is there something we should do to change it? I know we've got some chronic snow removal issues in our neighborhood, and I thought we changed something so that you didn't have to go through that whole lengthy process that you just went and did it.
Yes.
Kind of like,
Yep,
their time is up and
I think with the snow, it was after 48 hours, we could just go do it regardless.
okay, is there something that we should change with this one?
I
too,
think we
that would
could
be
certainly,
less labor
we could certainly
intensive?
look into that and make that decision if we just want it taken care of.
Yeah.
Similar to that snow removal policy, we could certainly look into that.
My guess is we have some chronic ones that just don't mow.
There are some frequent flyers, yes.
Yeah, yep. I would suggest we do that.
We can certainly look into that. The next item I would like to discuss is traffic signal lights, specifically the light located on First Street and Trot Avenue. This set of lights has given us trouble for a few years now. There are turn lane arrow issues and timing issues that are all tied to the loops in the road. The staff has tried their best to work around these loop issues. We've bypassed systems, we've added new cards and sensors, but so far they've only given us temporary fixes. We had a company come and try to pull new wire through these loops to take care of the issue, but they could not get the wire through because the conduit is crushed. So, unfortunately, you can expect seeing me at a future meeting asking for approval for an upgraded traffic system at that area. That's really the only alternative that we have at this point. We've gone over, we get calls constantly. It's very frustrating. It goes into a fault mode and sets the green arrow on, and so we are working to correct this issue. Next, I will go to tree removal. I'm sure you've noticed that there have been a substantial number of trees removed over the last number of months. This has taken place for a variety of reasons. Some of the trees were dying. Many more were requested to be taken down by property owners, and the majority of the others were taken down for street construction reasons. This was the case on Willmar Avenue, 13th Street, Grace Avenue, Rice Avenue area, and 10th Street Northwest. Many of these sidewalks were interfering with, many of these tree roots were interfering with sidewalks and curbs and shifting many of the sidewalk panels and causing trip hazards. So in order for these sidewalks to be compliant, these hazards have to be mitigated. Sometimes they can be done by grinding the panels, but other times sidewalk repair is necessary. And with the size of the roots, that sometimes the only option is removal of the tree.
So Justin, will the
Yes.
city be replacing all of those?
We will be replacing most of them. There will be a handful that maybe there's 3 trees and we took 2 of them, and one might not fit in the middle or it won't thrive, so we might not plant that one.
And that happens in the fall?
Yes, that'll happen in the fall, yep. And also under power lines, we no longer plant under power lines, so. I will say that I am not aware of any emerald ash borer within the city of Willmar, but I know it's right on our doorstep. It's located in the northern part of the county. I have been in conversation with a company out of Spicer, and I've had meetings with them regarding potential treatment for this insect and to see what options are available to potentially save the ash trees. I will just say that if we are to move in this direction, it is going to take a significant investment, both financially and from a time commitment. So this will need to be evaluated further, and it may require some discussion at a work session.
Tried that with elm trees and it didn't take.
Right. So, and again, we don't have to get into it, but maybe we want to decide what is our direction going to be. Is it going to be treat what we have or work towards replanting something different? You know, what do we want to put our resources to? So,
I would say 70 to 80% of our trees are ash.
you're not far off. I think our last tree inventory, we had roughly 7,000 ash trees on the boulevard. That's just the public boulevard, not to mention the thousands more private and in the parks and whatnot.
If we take them all out, we'll look like South Dakota.
You're right about that. I've been talking way too long, but there is one more thing I want to get to. At the last council meeting, you heard from Jason Butler and Paul Kidrowski about the water issues on Benson Avenue. Prior to that, Administrator Valiant, Planning Director Corbett, along with myself, met with Mr. Butler a few months ago to hear about the water line break, foundation movement, water flowing back into the building, and a storm water service line at 309 Benson Avenue Southwest. It's formerly the Zero Tolerance Building. After that meeting, the Public Works staff was sent over to Benson Avenue to inspect the stormwater main. Just for information for both storm lines and sanitary, the city's responsibility is the main line, and service lines ultimately fall on the property owner. So we looked at the storm line main. Everything looked good to us, but just to be thorough, we had the main line clean and televised, and this happened on March 20th. This showed us that the main line was clear, had no sediment on it inside, or other causes for concerns. I spoke with Mr. Butler after that, and while he understood that the city's responsibility was for the main, there was a municipal utility sump pump located in a vault under the sidewalk near his building that was pumping water back into the building. MUC was made aware of this and filed an insurance claim to investigate this. My understanding is that this claim was denied by the League of Minnesota Cities, but regardless, Municipal Utilities is going to do some exploratory digging tomorrow, actually, it's scheduled, to look for any repairs or breaks in their sump pump line. So I just wanted to give you all that information. And I will be quiet now.
Anybody? All right, thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
All right, Jim.
Hi there.
Chief.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll attempt to be brief here tonight too. Thank you for having me up here to speak on some things happening in the Willmar Police Department. A couple things I wanted to go over quickly. I won't reiterate the calls for service, but just wanted to note a couple maybe anomalies that you see comparing the 2023 April numbers to 2024. If you look under crashes, you can see that that's dropped. That's always a good thing. A lot of these numbers tend to stay about the same. Two main anomalies that you'll see is that family service calls nearly doubled from 57 to 101. It's hard to say what that exactly points to, but part of it might be that with our school resource officers not being in the schools, some things that maybe could have been screened out by officers are now being moved completely into the system. Now, that counts all family service reports, whether we do further investigations on them or they're screened out from our office. Also, too, mental issues. You'll see that last year in April there were 9. This year there were 74 in April. A large number of that can probably account for 2 or 3 individuals in our community that sometimes we've received as many as 5 calls for service a day on the same individual. And we're working with with family services and other groups to try and get them the help they need, but a lot of times it's a slow, difficult process to get them brought anywhere for help or someplace that can help stabilize them. So we have a number of people in the community that eat up a considerable amount of time. And we are trying to do what's best for them and get them the help they need, but sometimes they're not very receptive to that too. So probably the biggest anomaly that you'll see is under public assist. That is a typo. It should be 132 last year and not 2. So that number is tracking pretty close to normal. I went through all these numbers again, and that one I definitely wanted to point out that that's not the case. So as far as calls for service, the police department of Willmar typically runs about 50 to 60 calls for service per day. That puts us roughly 16,000 to 20,000 plus calls for service per year. We are on track for that. Again, comparing last year to this year, we are 11 days ahead when it comes to calls for service. So it's been a very busy year so far. I just want to say that I'm incredibly proud of the police department staff. You've hired a great group of people there that work for the city of Willmar. They're very caring, compassionate. They want to do what's best for the community, and they work very hard. And through everything, we're short officers, which is no secret right now, but they've been very flexible. They've been adjusting schedules. They've been doing training, working patrol after that, covering those calls for service the best they can. So I really want to give them the full credit for the hard work that they do and for keeping up the best they can. A recent change in the department is that after Officer Sam Schaefbauer left for Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, we promoted Jeff Liebel to the position of sergeant. In the police department, we have 6 sergeants, 4 work patrol. 1 is a detective sergeant, 1 is a community outreach sergeant that works with our community service officers and special events and things like that. We did lose one of our police officers to the Sheriff's Department, Officer Chris Flatten, who was canine handler for Canine Axle, is now working for the Sheriff's Department. We did gain 1 new officer, Officer Rosa Rodriguez, started in April, and she is in her field training right now. But we still are at a deficit for officers, and we are currently doing backgrounds on some candidates that just graduated from Alec Tech. So we're hoping that we can pick up at least a couple out of that. So. Probably one of the biggest things that's happened in the department recently I just wanted to make note of is that back in April 10th, 2023, one of our officers who was operating as part of the C6 Drug and Gang Task Force was in Granite Falls executing a search warrant for a violent offender down there. When the team entered the house, they were let in by an individual. When they stepped into the house, the suspect was at the top of the stairs, shot at our officers as they entered the home. Officer Jason Hay was one of the Willmar police officer with the Drug Task Force at that time. He returned fire, was injured by a bullet that hit his back underneath his body armor. They were able to exit the home, got him to the hospital. He was treated, released, back on duty to full duty. He continues to work with the Drug Task Force and involved in a lot of investigations there. But as a part of that, he was awarded the Law Enforcement Purple Heart through the American Police Hall of Fame Foundation and was awarded that at our department in February. And then just recently, he was nominated by an officer from another agency through a organization called the National Association of Police Organizations, or NAPO. And he was awarded an honorable mention for Top Cop 2024 from NAPO. And that award was given in Washington, D.C. on May 12th. Officer Hay met with City Administrator Valiant. She made arrangements for him to be able to attend the ceremony in person to collect his award. And that happened during Police Week, so he was able to be in Washington, D.C. for a couple days during Police Week and see the memorial and some other things there too. So he relayed that was a very good experience. So first and foremost, we're very thankful for his safety and recovery through all that. Our officers face a lot of danger. Since I became chief here, maybe I'm the bad luck, but we've had 7 officer-involved shootings, and we probably went a couple decades before that without. That's the greatest fear of mine is one of our people being hurt or killed, and we've come very close. We've had some officers that have suffered some serious injuries, but I'm so thankful for them and the work that they do, and just very proud of them. So I want to relay that to you, and I hope you're as proud of them as I am.
Chief, what's a full complement for Willmar PD?
Right now, our authorized strength is 38,
And what do
and
we
we have
got?
32.
32?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Justin?
With a staffing shortage like that, and I imagine like it's probably not going to be solved overnight or in the next couple of years, like, are you looking into like alternatives? What are there other departments around the state that are utilizing civilians to do things that maybe officers had in the past? Are there any ways that you can kind of adapt?
Yeah, that's a few things that we've been working at is, fortunately, we've got a full complement of community service officers. We had one new community service officer start today, and having them do more peripheral things on the department where you don't need a licensed law enforcement officer to do it. One thing too, and I don't hope I'm not giving away any trade secrets here, is we are starting to recruit younger. We're really hoping that our police explorers that are in there gain an interest in Willmar PD, want to serve as officers and want to serve with our department. So part of that is selling it to them when they're younger. We're finding out that the second year law enforcement students, a majority of them already have job offers. So we're trying to link into people just going into the programs, knowing that it's going to be 2 years out before they would start. But we also realize we have to sell their families on it, because we've got students that they're anxious to be cops, but they also go home, sit at the kitchen table, and maybe their family has got some reservations about that, or their grandparents or their friends. So we kind of have to work that whole circle and let them know what the career in law enforcement is all about, and that type of thing too. So that's some of the strategies we're working on now, is that we realize there's probably not a immediate fix, but hopefully down the road it'll be a better path.
Carl?
Chief Felt is being very humble. He neglected to mention his honor that he received from the Law Enforcement Memorial Association for 20 years of standing guard at the Peace Officers Memorial. And,
Thank you. Thank you.
Attaboy.
Honored to do
You
it.
got
It's the
one
least I can do.
attaboy.
So, thank you.
All right.
What,
Yes, Julie.
how many officers do we have presently? Now we lost Sam. He was on Lima. How many do we have presently that are?
We have one. Tim Wallace is a member of the Lima Honor Guard, so he remains on the team there.
So is Dave Holmquist still on?
Dave, I actually talked to him at the memorial. He is in field training with the State Patrol right now, and it sounds, he doesn't know for sure, but sounds fairly positive that once he's done with his field training, he may be able to go back to Lima as part of the State Patrol.
Any other questions for the chief?
Yeah, but he was a city.
Well, thank you,
All right, thank you.
chief. Is that it for tonight?
Well, one more thing,
Yes,
community pride.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I stopped out to Cinco de Mayo on Saturday, and I did talk to Willie Gonzalez. It was a good turnout, but he said that they didn't feel like they had, the vendors didn't feel like they had as much traffic and interest as they would have when they were downtown. So going forward, he said he's going to need the help of the council for being able to move that possibly to the downtown. And just, thank you to all those volunteers and the people that worked on that. There's a lot of work that goes behind a community celebration like that. So they may possibly be looking at the downtown and then having to block off an area, kind of like we do for Willmar Fest and the block party.
They had a very big turnout. There's a lot of people out there. All right,
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
we're adjourned.